obvious. The law is simply titled An Act Postponing the December 2022 Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan Elections. If they got re-elected in the May 2018 elections, they will continue to serve. In other words, RA 11935 took away the voters' right to choose their leaders in each of the more than 42,000 barangays in our country, and at the same time forced upon our voters leaders who were not elected or chosen by them, but were merely imposed upon them by law or by Congress. This act, Your Honor, will constitute a disenfranchisement of voters, as they are denied of their fundamental right of electing their leaders and representatives, which strikes at the heart of the Constitution's declared principle of ensuring autonomy of local governments. In the case of the Vid versus Comelec, if these barangay officials want to continue serving, said the Supreme Court, they must get a new mandate. And in this case, if they want to continue serving, they should get a new mandate in the December 5, 2022 scheduled barangay elections. The issue on whether the power of Comelec to decide all questions affecting election as provided under Section 2, Article 90 of the Constitution.
Hear ye.
Whether or not it precludes the power of Congress to amend or repeal a law fixing the schedule of barangay elections, we submit, Your Honors, that a distinction must be made between Congress's power to fix the term of barangay officials and its authority to postpone elections. While both acts have the same effect of changing the schedule of future elections, postponement of elections via congressional fiat is not allowed, as this is a function reserved for the Commission on Elections. On the other hand, Section 2, Article 90 of the Constitution does not preclude Congress's power to amend or repeal a law fixing the term of barangay officials, which as a consequence adjusts the date of their elections. However, as we said earlier, such law must be applied prospectively. On the issue of whether any postponement on the any pronouncement on the postponement of barangay elections should automatically be applied to SK elections, we respectfully submit that in the absence of another law setting a separate date for the SK elections, any pronouncement by this Honorable Court as regards postponement of barangay elections should be automatically applied to SK elections pursuant to RA 9164 on the synchronization of barangay and SK elections. I go now to the interrelated issues of whether or not the enactment of RA 119354 effectively disenfranchised voters, thereby violating their right to due process and their right of suffrage, whether there is a violation of their right to choose officials of their barangays, as there is no substantial reason for the repeated postponement. On this, we respectfully submit the following. In all the laws passed by Congress, including this question law, which postponed the scheduled barangay elections, it always carried with it the provision on holdover, in that incumbent barangay officials shall remain in office unless sooner removed or suspended for cause. This is a clear violation again of electorate's right to due process and their right of suffrage, as it violated their right to choose their barangay officials without notice and hearing. This postponement of barangay elections is a subtle way of extending the term of office of these barangay officials without the mandate of the people. If this Honorable Court again sustains Congress's power to do this, these repeated postponements of barangay elections with extension of their term to boot, then Congress will be a very, very powerful institution in the political arena of our country. For instance, those barangay officials who were elected in the May 2013 barangay election served for 5 years or until May 2018. If they got re-elected in the May 2018 elections, they will continue to serve until October 2023, which is another 5 years. And now, if they will be elected again in the October 2023 elections, they get another 3 years, or for a total of 13 years in office. Of course, again, it would be subject to extension if again the Congress postpones the October 2023 barangay elections. Therefore, when Congress postpones a scheduled barangay election with the corresponding extension of the term of office of the barangay officials by having them remain in office in a holdover capacity, it is actually making legislative appointments of these barangay officials. In other words, when Congress extended their terms after the term of office had expired, that constitutes a legislative appointment, Your Honor. Because in one opinion, it was said that legislative appointment covers holdover offices, since a legislative extension of the term of an incumbent is virtually an appointment of the office for the extended time. And no less than the 1987 Philippine Constitution prohibits the appointment of these barangay officials. However, in this case, what Congress cannot do directly, it is doing indirectly. Because in clear circumvention of the law, Congress appointed these barangay officials by postponing the scheduled December 5, 2022 elections, thereby extending their term of office by allowing them to hold over to their positions until December 31, 2022. In a word, what the Constitution prohibits, the question law now permits. For sure, again, Congress is not allowed by the Constitution to appoint any official under the Constitution. They are not empowered to appoint any official who, under the Constitution, are supposed to be elected by their respective constituents. The Constitution is very clear that barangay officials are to be elected and not appointed. And clearly, the disenfranchisement of the voters is very apparent in that under this questioned law, Congress imposes upon us or compels us, the electorate, to accept their barangay officials, whether the latter like it or not, for an extended period, again, beyond the 3-year term for which they were elected. Counter to the very essence of the right of suffrage of our people to choose the candidate of their choice. Certainly, Your Honors, to postpone the December 5, 2022 barangay elections is to extend again the term of office of these barangay officials. And for that, Your Honors, these holdovers can no longer be considered as representatives of the people in the respective barangays, but they could now be called as representatives of Congress to whom these barangay officials owe their holdover positions. In other words, Republic Act 11935 took away the voters' right to choose their leaders in each of the more than 42,000 barangays in our country, and at the same time forced upon our voters leaders who were not elected as provided for under the Constitution. On the issue of equal access to opportunities for public service, we respectfully submit, Your Honors, that the question law and similar laws which postponed barangay polls and extended the term of office of these barangay officials had denied thousands, if not millions, of Filipino citizens of their opportunity to serve as barangay officials. In election law, in election practice, Your Honors, and election cases, it shows that an average of about 3 candidates would vie
for an elective position, and they would file their COCs for an election. With some 42,000 barangays in our country, Your Honors, each consisting of a punong barangay and 7 kagawads, or 8 barangay positions per barangay, there will be 336,000 positions at stake, because 42,000 times 8 positions in each barangay gives us 336 positions at stake in a barangay election. And at an average of 3 candidates per position, we are talking here of some 1,008,000 candidates who were unduly deprived of their opportunity to be a barangay official because of the repeated postponement of barangay elections and the corresponding extension of term of incumbent barangay officials. Sorry, Robert. Now, on the issue of violation of one subject, one title rule under the Constitution, please admit that the violation is very, very obvious. The law is simply titled An Act Postponing the December 2022 Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan Elections. If we just read the title, its real character or purpose had not been properly disclosed, thereby denying those people interested of the actual nature, scope, and consequences of the said law and its operation. For the truth of the matter is that RA 11935 does not only postpone the December 5, 2022 elections, but it has extended the term of office of these barangay officials and allowed them to remain in office as holdover officials. This obvious violation of the said rule justifies its invalidation, Your Honor. But may I just add, Your Honors, the title, Your Honor, of this law, it's Annex A of my petition, it is postponing December 2022 elections. Kailan? Kailan sa December? What specific date on this in December? It only says December 2022 elections. In the future, if somebody makes a research of this law, anong date nag-election on December 2022? It does not state. It does not specifically state that it is postponing the December 5, 2022 elections. Now, from the entire body, the entire provisions of the law, there is nothing in the law which says that it is postponing the December 5, 2022 elections. Wala pong nakalagay. Hindi nakasaad dito na ipinagpapaliban ang December 5, 2022 elections to another date. Hindi alam ng tao kung anong ipinapopostpone. For instance, why am I arguing on this issue, Your Honor? Because in previous laws postponing the barangay elections, they specifically state, Your Honor, that they are postponing the particular barangay election to another date, specifically stating that particular date. For instance, Republic Act 11935. Rather, for instance, Republic Act 10952, which postponed the October 23, 2017 barangay elections. It specifically provided the barangay elections on October 23, 2017 shall be postponed to the second Monday of May 2018. Very clear. It states the barangay elections to be postponed and when that particular barangay is supposed to be postponed will be held. In this question law, there is nothing. Kahit basahin po ninyo ang buong provision, wala kayong mababasa na pinapopostpone nila ang December 5, 2022 elections. If you look at Republic Act 11462, Your Honors, this is the law which postponed the May 2020 barangay elections. It says the barangay elections on the second Monday of 2020 shall be postponed to December 5, 2022. Very clear. Napakaliwanag. Pero itong batas na ito, hindi naman niya sinasabi kailan nagpo-postpone, alin ang pinopostpone, kailan gaganapin. Pwede bang may I request for an extension of my term? I mean, my discussion, Your Honor. Yeah. Sandali na lang po, Your Honor. Extension of, yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much, Your Honor. So, yung po maliwanag po na kahit basahin natin itong batas na ito, wala kayong makikita ganon. And even this law, it says, it amends Republic Act 9164 as amended. What laws amended Republic Act 9164? Pahihirapan natin ang taong bayan para hanapin yung mga batas na nag-amyenda ng 9164. It does not state. But in other laws, for instance, again, Republic Act 10952, it says Republic Act 9164 is amended by RA 9340, 10632, etc., etc. In Republic Act 9164, it states that Republic Act 9164 is amended by all the laws specified. Now, why is it important that the law should specifically state also the laws amending 9164? Because under Section 2 of this law, Republic Act 11835, it mentions of Section 4 of Republic 9164 as amended is hereby amended to read as follows. Aling batas na nag-amend ng 9164 ang sinusundan ng batas na ito? What specific law that amended 9164 is referred to in this law? People will be confused, Your Honors. People will not know. People who are interested to study law will never know what is the real content of this particular law. Napakalabo, napakamahiwaga, Your Honors. Now, on the other issue, Your Honor, of whether the postponement of barangay election is constitutionally constrained by the grounds enumerated under Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code, I submit, Your Honor, that the Constitution is silent on the possibility of postponement of elections for causes outside of Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code. The Constitution is silent on the postponement of elections to all elected positions, from President all the way down to the elected barangay positions. On the issue of whether or not COMELEC still has the logistical capability to conduct the said elections, well, Your Honor, I have read some statements of the Honorable Commissioner George Garcia that they still continue to prepare for the barangay and SK elections. And he said that he prefers to continue the elections and saying that the cancellation of the barangay elections will mean more expenses for the COMELEC, and the COMELEC would not be saving funds, Your Honors. And of course, before the end of the oral arguments, of course, Your Honors, we would be reiterating our prayer that specific advice be given to the COMELEC to, in the meantime, continue preparing for the barangay elections. Now, Your Honor, as I end my oral arguments, I'd like to thank this Honorable Court for giving me a chance to submit and ventilate my views on this matter, which for the past so many years that Congress had been postponing barangay elections, I had been wanting to assail. I respectfully submit, Your Honors, that this act of postponing barangay elections with the corresponding extension of term of office has deprived me, deprived you, deprived the Solicitor General, deprived all the people here of the right to choose their own leaders. Lahat ng ito, nawala sa atin ang ating karapatan. Sapagkat parang sinasabi ng Congress, sinasabi sa akin, sinasabi sa inyo, sinasabi sa lahat, ito ang inyong mga barangay officials. Sa ayaw ninyo at sa gusto, yan ang mamamahala sa inyo. Papayag ba tayo sa ganyang uri ng pamalakad ng ating pamahalaan? This court will sustain Congress, Sapor said, power these barangay officials could hold on to their positions and they will be no longer the representatives of the people. They will become representatives of Congress forever. And how long? Hanggang kailan mananatili sila sa position? As long as Congress would want it. They can stay forever. And for that, these barangay officials could sing forever to the goodness of Congress. Huwag po naman sanang mangyari yan sa ating bansa, Your Honors, sapagkat ang kasagutan ay nakasalalay sa inyong mga kamay. Maraming po salamat. Pagpalain nawa tayo ng poong ikapan.
Thank you, Attorney Macalintal. May we hear from the Solicitor General?
Good afternoon again, Your Honors. Mr. Chief Justice, members of this most honorable Supreme Court, may please the court. Elections are at the bedrock of our democracy. Regular elections foster rule by the governed instead of rule by political elites. These propositions are self-evident and invite no further debate. However, they do not in themselves prove that every electoral postponement is anathema to a democratic and representative government. On the contrary, an election forced under less than optimal conditions may wreak greater havoc on our democracy compared to a temporary postponement decreed by legislative fiat. This danger especially rings true when, as in this case, the mechanism entrusted by the Constitution for the delivery of election services will be rushed to ensure its conduct even under severe constraints of time and resources. Mr. Chief Justice, Your Honors, questions relating to the postponement of elections and its resultant effect on the term of barangay officials have been raised before this court in the past. This court, in many of its decisions, Comelec versus Cruz and David versus Comelec among them, deferred the resolution of these questions to the wisdom of Congress. That Congress has the power to decide this question is beyond cavil. The Constitution vests in Congress the power of legislation. This power is plenary in character and embraces the subject of election postponements, scheduling or rescheduling, subject only to the limits imposed by the Constitution. It is in the exercise of this power that the two houses of Congress enacted Republic Act number 11935, postponing the December 2022 Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections. Congress has exercised this power in several instances in the past. It did so 2 years ago when it postponed the barangay elections because of public health concerns on account of the pandemic. It did so again this July when it passed Republic Act number 11935 and moved the date of the elections for barangay and SK officials from 5 December 2022 to the last Monday of October 2023. Judicial scrutiny of the validity of these postponements, while permissible under the court's expanded power of judicial review, is only allowed under very narrow limits. As this court held in Comelec versus Cruz, such scrutiny may only happen in two instances. One, when there is grave abuse of discretion on the part of Congress. Or two, when the postponement of barangay elections clearly violates any constitutional standard. Petitioner himself has not attributed to Congress any abuse of discretion in the enactment of Republic Act number 11935. And as respondents will make abundantly clear, this postponement of the barangay elections made by Congress does not violate any constitutional standard. Mr. Chief Justice, Your Honors, the exercise by Congress of its legislative power to postpone the barangay elections to 2023 does not intrude into the power of the Commission on Elections to decide all questions affecting elections. This power, enshrined in Section 2, Paragraph 3, Article 9-C of the Constitution, does not include the power to set the date of elections. The phrase affecting elections in this clause presupposes a priorly set elections. As such, COMELEC's power to decide questions affecting elections is confined to the conduct of matters of an operational nature relative to the holding of elections. This is made evident by the qualifying phrase in Section 2, Paragraph 3, Article 9-C of the Constitution, which clarifies by way of example those matters included within COMELEC's power to decide. The examples set by the Constitution, such as the number and location of polling places, the appointment of election officials and inspectors, and the registration of voters, are clearly operational matters. They do not include setting the date of elections. Section 8, Article 6, and Section 4, Article 7 of the Constitution constitute textual authority for the proposition that the power to fix the date of an election is legislative in character. These provisions fix the regular election of members of Congress and of the President and Vice President on the second Monday of May, unless otherwise provided by law. By allowing the date of the election for these national officials to be alternatively fixed by law, the Constitution expressly granted the legislature the power to change the date of their election from that fixed by the Constitution. Respondents submit that if the Constitution grants Congress this power, so far as the election of national leaders is concerned, with all the more reason should this power be recognized to reside in Congress in respect of the date of election of barangay officials. Moreover, the power of the COMELEC to postpone an election is not traceable to any provision of the Constitution. It is statutory in character, granted to COMELEC pursuant to Section 5 of Batas Pambansa Bilang 881, otherwise known as the Omnibus Election Code. This statutorily granted power is limited. It is exercisable only under the circumstances and conditions set forth in BP 881. More importantly, it can be withdrawn by Congress by amendment or repeal. Mr. Chief Justice, Your Honors, the validity of the postponement of the barangay election cannot be challenged on the ground that it will result in the retroactive lengthening of the term of incumbent barangay officials or that it amounts to legislative appointments. To repeat, the power of Congress to postpone barangay elections is but part of the plenary power to legislate. The Constitution did not impose upon Congress the limitation that it may exercise this power only once. It could not. To hold otherwise will give Congress, composed of great but fallible men and women like all of us, the power to pass an irrepealable law. The power given to Congress to set the date of elections of barangay officials carries with it the discretion to fix the effectivity of the enactment. Contrary to petitioner's claim, this court has already held in Comelec versus Cruz that retroactivity is a statutory norm, not a constitutional standard. In the words of this court, and I quote, says the issue of retroactivity of laws can get to a genuine constitutional issue is if a law's retroactive application will impair vested rights. Otherwise stated, if a right has already vested in an individual and a subsequent law effectively takes it away, a genuine due process issue may arise. But there is no deprivation of any vested right in this case. Contrary to petitioner's claim, the postponement of the barangay elections effected by Congress deprives neither political contestants nor the electorate of their right to due process. The postponement effected by RA 11935 is not open-ended. On the contrary, Congress postponed our barangay elections to a fixed later date. This evinces a clear intent on the part of our legislators to inform both the sovereign electorate of a definite date, 12 months from now, when they shall exercise their right to suffrage, and the political contestants of the day certain when the electoral contest for barangay office will be held. This postponement, therefore, does not deprive the sovereign electorate of their right to vote. Neither does it violate the constitutional guarantee under Section 26, Article 2 of equal access to public service. For apart from the delay of 10 months in the exercise of these rights, which length of time even petitioner has not claimed to be unreasonable, RA number 11935 places no restrictions or conditions on the right to vote or on the right to run for barangay office. Meanwhile, the holdover provision of RA number 11935 cannot be construed as a legislative appointment in favor of incumbent barangay officials who may be indirectly benefited thereby. In the first place, an appointment is a process that takes several steps to complete. It involves, among others, selection, acceptance by the appointee, and assumption to a previously vacant office. It requires discretion on the part of the appointing authority. None of these are extant in the case of barangay officials allowed to stay in a holdover capacity. Congress makes no selection on who may serve the extended term of a barangay official. No acceptance is required of the appointee, and there is no reassumption as the office in question is not vacated. Most importantly, there is no discretion exercised. For in reality, what transpires is not an appointment. In the second place, the delivery of public service, albeit on a holdover capacity, is legally allowed for this class of officials. Such mandate vests in the incumbent official on account of practical necessity, not by some whim or caprice on the part of the Congress. This holdover mandate has found judicial approbation in Sambarani versus Comelec and again in ADAP versus Comelec. In these cases, this court upheld the application of the holdover principle for this class of officials to preserve the continuity in transaction of official business and to prevent hiatus in government service. Finally, the validity of RA number 11935 cannot be challenged on the ground that it violates the one subject, one title rule enshrined in Section 26, Paragraph 1, Article 6 of the Constitution. This rule is intended to prevent surprise or fraud upon the legislature and apprise the people of the contents of a proposed legislation. However, it does not require the transformation of the title of the proposed legislation into a complete index of its contents. As such, the general repealing clause found in Section 6 of RA number 11935 need not be reflected in its very title. Mr. Chief Justice, Your Honors, the barangay and SK elections were previously set on 5 December 2022. Pursuant to constitutional and statutory mandate, the COMELEC embarked on adequate administrative and operational preparations towards the holding of these elections. These preparations included, among others, voter registration, drafting the calendar of activities and implementing resolutions for the conduct of the elections, procurement projects for the supplies, materials, and services necessary thereto, and printing of official ballots. The enactment of RA number 11935 compelled COMELEC to put a halt to these preparations. In our consultations, COMELEC has made clear that it is now impossible to hold the elections on 5 December 2022 in view of the passage of RA number 11935 and the consequent suspension of the preparatory activities crucial to the conduct of the barangay elections. Forcing the holding of elections under these circumstances may have far-reaching implications on our democracy and in the trust and confidence of the electorate on the outcome of these important electoral exercises. Respondents therefore pray of this most honorable court the dismissal of the petition. Mr. Chief Justice, Your Honors, thank you, and may it please the court.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor General. The justices will interpolate the presenters, and they are free to ask any of the presenters. The first to ask is Justice Antonio Co. Justice Co.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Uh, Petitioner Makanital, please. Good afternoon,
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Kulital.
Good afternoon, sir.
You filed the petition to assail the constitutionality of RA 11935 by invoking the expanded jurisdiction of this honorable court under Section 1, Article 8 of the Constitution. However, similar to the observation made earlier by the Solicitor General, I don't see any specific allegation in the petition of grave abuse of discretion on the part of Congress in enacting RA 11935. Can you explain this omission?
I think there is no omission, Your Honors, because when I filed this, I am also guided by some pronouncements of this honorable court that petitions for certiorari and prohibition are remedies that could be availed of to assail the constitutionality of legislative and executive enactments, and a direct invocation of this court jurisdiction is allowed when there are special and important reasons, therefore clearly and especially set out in the petition. It is stated, Your Honor, in the nature of my petition.
Sorry. Yes, but under Section 1, Article 8, with respect to the expanded jurisdiction, the Constitution specifically states that there must be grave abuse of discretion. Nowhere in your petition you allege any specific act of grave abuse of discretion
Yes, Your Honor.
on the part of Congress in enacting this law.
Well, Your Honor, I think the submission of the Honorable Solicitor General is too technical, Your Honors, because I would submit, Your Honors, that when the issue is constitutionality and the law is considered as unconstitutional, then that clearly shows the abuse of discretion committed by Congress, Your Honors. That is my position, Your Honor. Don't have any more to state it clearly, but by the petition itself contesting the constitutionality, it involves the abuse of discretion if this honorable court would find that the law is unconstitutional.
Okay, Mr. Petitioner. I noticed that in your petition, you did not include Congress, the House, as well as the Senate as part of the respondents. Considering that RA 11935 was an enactment of Congress, why did you not include them as respondents in this case to afford them the opportunity to defend RA 11935 before this court?
But because I believe, Your Honor, that by just impleading the office of the President, which will implement the law, and also the Commission on Elections, which will adhere to the implementation of the said law, that would be enough, Your Honors. And in previous cases which I filed before this honorable court, assailing some enactments of Congress, I did not include or implead members of Congress, Your Honors.
So,
And my petitions were duly given due course by the honorable court, Your Honors.
So, Mr. Petitioner, you don't consider the Congress, the House, as well as the Senate as an indispensable party in seeking a nullity of a law enacted by them?
In this particular case, Your Honor, I find no reason to have impleaded them, Your Honors.
Okay. Now, Mr. Petitioner, does the right to vote and elect public officials belong to the people?
Yes, Your Honor. As a matter of fact, the Constitution provides that qualified citizens have the right to vote, Your Honors.
In a representative democracy such as ours, would you agree that the people, by voting their representatives to Congress, have delegated some of the powers to Congress?
Yes, Your Honors.
Suppose the people delegated their power to postpone the election to the representative Congress. Would the delegation be limited or absolute?
Well, if if it is provided for in the Constitution, Your Honors, that Congress can postpone the barangay elections, then that would be an absolute right of Congress, Your Honors.
So,
But the enactment of a law must again yield to the rule that the law must be constitutional.
so what would be the limitation or the test of situations of limitation on the part of Congress to postpone an election?
Well, the limitation would be that what is provided for in the Constitution. For instance, in this case, Congress is allowed to determine the term of office of the barangay officials. So once it is determined, it is as if that is already the provision of the Constitution, because once fixed, it cannot be refixed, Your Honors.
Okay. Without assuming its constitutionality or unconstitutionality, would RA 11935 qualify as a police power measure by Congress?
I don't know, Your Honor. I cannot get the.
Would the enactment of RA 11935 pursuant to the police power of Congress of the state?
I don't think the police power is involved in this case, Your Honors.
Okay. Now, RA 11935 postpones the 2022 BSKE or the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataang election. You argued that it is in effect a deprivation of the right to suffrage. Am I correct?
Yes, Your Honors.
As a law that supposedly restrict the right to vote, as you argue, should RA 11935 be subject to what is known as the strict scrutiny test?
Yes, Your Honor. Republic Act 11935 should be strictly reviewed, Your Honors, because it violates the fundamental right of a person to vote. It, as I said earlier, Your Honor, it took away the voters' right to choose their own officials, because the law itself says that these barangay officials, whose term of office will end by December 2022, would have an extension of their term. And by extending their term of office, they are no longer elected officials. They are already practically appointed by Congress, Your Honors.
Okay. You said in your petition, Mr. Petitioner, that RA 11935 is void and unconstitutional because it encroaches upon the COMELEC's constitutional power to decide all questions relating to election, particularly in the postponement of the barangay and SK election, citing as basis items 2 and 3 of Section 2, Article 9C of the 1987 Constitution and Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Let's go to item 2, Section 2, Article 9C of the 1987 Constitution. You will agree with me that it speaks of the quasi-judicial power of COMELEC to resolve all contests relating to election, returns, and qualification.
Yes, Your Honor.
If indeed, as you argued, that the power to postpone the barangay and the SK election belongs to COMELEC, Item 2, Section 2, Article 9 of the 1987 Constitution will not apply, since the power to postpone an election is an exercise of what is known as the administrative power of COMELEC and not a quasi-judicial one. What can you say to that?
Well, the Omnibus Election Code, specifically the Constitution, Your Honors, gives COMELEC the exclusive power to postpone the election. Now, when Congress enacts a law postponing the election, then it is practically amending Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code, Your Honors.
No, Mr. Petitioner, I'm citing particularly Item 2, Section 2, Article 9C of the 1987 Constitution, which you cite as a ground to nullify this RA 11935.
Yes, Your
My
Honor.
question is, this particular item grants COMELEC quasi-judicial power, but in the postponement of election, it is not in the exercise of quasi-judicial power, but merely administrative power. So therefore, what I'm saying, do you agree with me that this Item 2, Section 2, Article 9C of the 1987 Constitution does not apply and you cannot cite it as basis to nullify RA 119?
No, I still believe, Your Honor, that this could be used, Your Honor, to nullify, because it practically divests COMELEC of this power, Your Honor, to decide for itself whether or not the barangay election should be postponed.
Okay, let us proceed, Mr. Petitioner. You also agree that the postponement of an election adversely affects the right to vote of our people.
Yes, Your Honor.
In fact, in your petition, you argued that the said law, RA 11935, deprives the electorate of the right to suffrage to choose their barangay leaders. As you eloquently stated in your petition, and I quote, under this question law, Congress imposes or compels the electorate to accept their barangay leaders, whether the latter like it or not, for an extended period beyond the three-year term for which they were elected. This runs counter to the very essence of the right of suffrage of our people, which is to choose the candidate of their choice.
Yes, Your Honor.
Since postponing the election affects the right to vote, which you concur, and item 3 now, I'm speaking of item 3, section 2, article 9C of the Constitution, specifically excluded from COMELEC the power to decide any matter involving the right to vote of our people. So therefore, you agree with me that item 3 now, section 2, article 9 of the 1987 Constitution, which you just cited, cannot be used to argue that the power to postpone an election, which affects the right to vote of our people, is lodged with COMELEC.
Well, I will still maintain, Your Honor, that the power to postpone is still with the Commission on Elections, Your Honors.
Despite the fact that the constitutional provision on section 2, item 3, specifically excluded those involving the right to vote, which you said RA 11935 did.
Oh, you mean the phrase except those
Yes,
involving the right to vote, Your Honors?
Earlier, you mentioned earlier that the RA 11935 adversely affected our people, the right to suffrage. So therefore, since it adversely affects the right to suffrage, this is an issue which the COMELEC can decide pursuant to this section 2 item 3, because it is it state here except those involving the right to vote.
Well, I have not delved on this issue, Your Honor, in my petition, but my understanding, Your Honor, is that when the Constitution says that the COMELEC is given the right to decide all questions affecting elections, I would say that the postponement of the barangay elections done by Congress is included in this particular provision. Decide all questions affecting elections,
But
except the right to vote.
The right to vote.
The right
And
to vote, Your
since
Honor.
RA 11935, as you argued earlier, affects the right to suffrage of our voters, therefore COMELEC cannot decide on this matter.
No, Your Honor, it can still decide, Your Honor, because it involves questions affecting elections. Then it is still within the power of the Commission on Elections, because we are talking here, Your Honor, of the postponement of the elections, Your Honors.
Okay, I'll proceed, Mr. Petitioner. You also rely on Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code as a source of COMELEC's power to postpone an election. Would you agree with me that there's a distinction between a national election, where we elect national public officials, such as the president, vice president, and senators, and a nationwide election, where the electorate of the whole country elects its public officials, regardless of national or local?
There is no distinction, Your Honor, as to the application of Section 5 of Omnibus Election Code, Your Honors, as to whether it applies to national, local, or barangay elections, because Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code could be applied to any elections, Your Honors.
Okay, would you consider the barangay and the SK election a nationwide election?
Well, the barangay election, Your Honor, is a nationwide election. But in the case of the SK, Your Honors, I don't know if it could be considered as a nationwide election, because not everybody actually is participating, as there are precincts which or there are barangays which have no registered voters at all, Your Honors.
Okay, now, Mr. Petitioner, what are the country's political subdivisions?
What are
Our country political subdivisions as provided for under the local government code?
Well, we have the provinces, the cities, municipalities, Your Honors.
Yes. So in this connection, I read a portion of Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code on the postponement of election. Please allow me.
Yes, sir.
when for any serious cause, such as violence, terrorism, loss or destruction of election paraphernalia or records, force majeure, and other analogous causes of such a nature that the holding of a free, orderly, and honest election should become impossible in any political subdivision. I would like to stress that. The Commission, motu proprio or upon a verified petition by an interested party and after due notice and hearing, whereby all interested parties are afforded equal opportunity to be heard, shall postpone the election. My question is, does a political subdivision refer to the entire nation, our
No,
country?
not necessarily the entire, because the postponement could refer to one precinct, Your
Yes.
Honor, two precincts, one municipality, two municipalities, Your Honor.
And Section 5 allows COMELEC, therefore, to postpone the election not in postpone the election only in a political subdivision such as a province, city, and so on, but not the entire country. Because specifically Section 5 only provided in any political subdivision, not the entire country.
Well, I believe, Your Honor, that the entire country, Your Honor, if there's serious reasons for the COMELEC to postpone the election, Your Honors.
So therefore, you're saying COMELEC can postpone a national
national election.
Election.
Upon,
Despite the
upon
fact-
petition, Your Honors, and upon due notice to all political parties.
despite the fact that Section 5 specifically mentioned that it's limited to any political subdivision.
Yes, Your Honors.
Okay. Obviously, Mr. Petitioner, the country is not a subdivision of itself.
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Petitioner, you agreed that Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code, that Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code allows COMELEC to postpone the elections only on specific grounds.
Yes, Your Honors.
Let us assume, Mr. Petitioner, that the Legislative Department did not grant the power to postpone election to COMELEC under Section 5 when it enacted the law. You would agree with me that the power to postpone elections belong to Congress as part of its plenary power to legislate.
The postponement, Your Honor, might belong to the plenary power of the Congress, Your Honors. But when it postpones, there should not be any extension of term, and if there is any other election to be held, then that particular election should apply to the next period.
So
election
therefore, you
period.
agree with me, Mr. Petitioner, that if there is no Section 5 under the Omnibus Election Code, the power to postpone belongs to Congress.
If there was no Section 5. Your Honor.
Yes. Now, considering that Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code is limited in its scope and applicability to any political subdivision and only for specific grounds, you would agree with me that outside said scope and applicability, meaning on a nationwide basis, and for other grounds that Congress, in its wisdom, may provide, it is Congress that can act to postpone an election on a nationwide basis and for other grounds under its plenary power.
Well, in this particular case, Your Honors, I am always referring to the act of Congress postponing the election and at the same time extending the term of office of the barangay officials, Your Honors. That is the main contention in my petition, Your Honors.
Okay. In your petition, Mr. Petitioner, Mr. Makalintal, you specifically stated in paragraph 1.2, and I quote, "This petition does not assail the provisions of question RA 11935 pertaining to the election of Sangguniang Kabataan officials, considering that SK membership is a mere statutory right conferred by law, and Congress may amend at any time the law to change or even withdraw the statutory right."
Yes, Your Honors, because
So are you now changing your position on this matter?
no, only the SK, Your Honors, that I did not assail the postponement of the barangay of these SK elections because this SK, Your Honor, is not a local government unit, Your Honor. It is a youth organization, Your Honors.
Yes, Mr. Petitioner. Correct me if I heard you correct earlier that you're saying that pursuant to RA 1965,
9164.
9164, pursuant to the provision therein that it must be synchronized.
It must be synchronized, Your
So
Honor.
you're changing your position now.
No, Your Honor. I would still submit, Your Honor, that in the event that a pronouncement is made by this honorable court that we should push through with the election, then the SK election should also be included because the law provides for a synchronized barangay and SK elections.
Because we are basing our decision based on your petition. And in the event we grant your petition and the barangay election will proceed on December 5, while the Sangguniang Kabataan will be postponed to October next year, would this not violate our Republic Act 9164, which mandates the barangay and SK election must be synchronized?
Not necessarily, Your Honor, because if this court would sustain my petition, then we push through with the December 5, 2022 elections, Your Honors, and following the law, Republic Act 9164, it must be synchronized with the Sangguniang Kabataan elections.
But you are not praying for the TRO with respect to the Sangguniang Kabataan.
No, Your Honor, because I believe that if my petition will be granted, it automatically follows that the Sangguniang Kabataan elections will push through because of the synchronization aspect of Republic Act 9164.
Okay. Mr. Makalintal, in your petition, you use the word fix in saying that the Constitution gives Congress the power to fix the term of office of barangay officials, citing as basis Section 8, Article 10 of the 1987 Constitution. However, you agree that the word fix does not appear at all in Section 8, Article 10 of the 1987 Constitution.
Yes, Your Honor.
Instead of the word fix, the word used is determined.
Determined, Your Honor. But
Can you explain? Can you explain why you use the word fix instead of determine? Since, for my own personal understanding, the word fix connotes the character of permanency, while determine does not.
Well, it appears, Your Honors, that the words fix and determine, as used in that particular provision, is now used interchangeably, Your Honors. As a matter of fact, even in the oral arguments of the Honorable Solicitor General, it also mentions of fixed term.
Yes, but Section 8, Article 10 of the 1987 Constitution does not use
Yes,
the word
we
fix.
agree with
So
on that.
can we now, in these proceedings, avoid using the word fix to be faithful
to the Constitution?
to the Constitution by using the word determine?
I agree, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Petitioner. Incidentally, may Congress determine a different date for the national and local elections?
No, it cannot, Your Honors, because the Constitution has already determined that the elections will be on the second Monday of the year, Your Honor. Although the Constitution says that unless otherwise, Congress itself fixes another date.
So precisely, Congress now can determine a different date for the national and local election because the Constitution specifically states that unless provided for.
Yes, I think so, Your Honor, in that particular aspect, Your Honor.
Okay. Does the Constitution provide a precise date for a barangay election?
Will be determined by Congress, Your Honors.
Okay. Would you agree, Mr. Petitioner, that the Constitution gave Congress the power to set a different term of office of barangay officials in the future?
Yes, Your Honors. But the new term, Your Honor, should be applied prospectively and not retroactively.
The local government code is an act of Congress. If you say that the Congress cannot amend, are you advocating a legal concept that when Congress pass a law, it cannot amend or even repeal, thus amounting to an irrepealable law?
Well, I agree, Your Honor, that it can amend, but the amendment must be in harmony with the Constitution. In this particular case, yes, it amends the law. It amended the law, but it is my submission that the amendment is contrary to the Constitution, Your Honors.
Okay. Now, I would like to focus now on your assertion that RA 11935 gave Congress the power to make legislative appointments of barangay officials, which you said is prohibited. You cited the dissenting opinion of Justice Velasco in Kida versus Senate. However, Justice Velasco, in using the term legislative appointment in said case, quoted a portion of the case of Osmeña versus Comelec, which a portion of which I will read. It has been broadly stated that the legislature cannot, by an act of postponing the election, fill an office, the term of which is limited by the Constitution, extend the term of incumbent beyond the period as limited by the Constitution. It has been declared, however, that legislation postponing an election which is not passed for the sole purpose of extending official term, but which merely affects an extension as an incidental result, does not affect the legislative appointment of his successor. In this respect, however, a distinction is sometimes drawn between constitutional and statutory offices. Postponement of an election by the legislature does not fly in the face of the Constitution so long as the postponement is reasonable and does not destroy the elective character of the office affected. What can you say to that, Mr. Petitioner?
Well, the cited jurisprudence, Your Honor, said that as long as the postponement is reasonable. Now, is this postponement reasonable, Your Honors? I don't think that the many or repeated postponements of barangay elections is reasonable. It is no longer reasonable, Your Honor. It is very unreasonable.
Okay. Now, I would like to ask your comment regarding the pronouncement of the chairman of Comelec yesterday, which was published in ABS-CBN News, posted there stated here October 20, 2022 at 3:41 p.m. A portion of the news said, as far as this is a statement of quoted statement from the chairman of Comelec, George Garcia, as far as the Comelec is concerned, we prepared fully, but as of October 10, 2022, we slowed down because the law signed by the president. And so, if we will be asked if we are ready to hold election by December 5, we will say that there is no material time to proceed with the election. Before you answer, I would just like to call, if possible, the chairman of Comelec, Mr. George Garcia, to confirm his statement as quoted in this publication by ABS-CBN yesterday.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chief Justice, Your Honors. Your Honor, you are right. I was quoted rightly, and it was before I made that statement before the subcommittee of the Senate concerning the budget deliberation of the commissioner election.
Justice Ko,
Thank-
may I interrupt you? Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask you that what I would like to tell you that whatever statements you made is considered under oath
Yes, sir.
in this proceeding.
Fully understood, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Can I proceed, Chief? Yeah, it's a petitioner. Can you comment on the statement made by the chairman of Comelec that they cannot at this point in time proceed, or they cannot, it is impossible now to hold the election on December 5?
I don't believe, Your Honors, that the COMELEC is not capable of proceeding with the election. Maybe not on December 5, Your Honors, but on a date close, very close to the date of the election that is postponed. because that is provided for under Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code, that while the COMELEC may postpone, it has still to continue with the election, Your Honor, on a date reasonably close to the date of the postponed election after the cessation of the cause for the postponement, Your Honor.
But Mr. Petitioner, RA 11935 does not provide for any other date except the last Monday of October 2023. So therefore, this court will, you're saying, should ask Congress to enact another law
No, Your Honor.
to set another date for the barangay and SK elections?
Because there is a provision, Your Honor, in the Omnibus Election Code, or RA 7166, that if the dates provided for under the law will not be reasonable to conduct a clean, honest, and orderly election, then the COMELEC is empowered to fix another date, Your Honors. I can discuss that in my memorandum, Your Honor. I just don't know the exact section of the law on that particular provision, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Petitioner.
Marami po salamat, sir.
Chief, can I proceed?
Yes.
Sarge, can I proceed
Go
with
ahead.
Respondents Counsel?
Go ahead.
Mr. Solicitor General?
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Solicitor General. Article 10, Section 8 of the Constitution states that the term of office of elected local official, except barangay officials, which shall be determined by law, shall be 3 years, and no such official shall serve for more than 3 consecutive terms. Pursuant to this provision, it is the Congress, through the enactment of a law, that determines the term of office of barangay officials. My question, can Congress provide for a term of office of barangay officials for a number of years and for any number of consecutive term as it deems proper? In other words, is the power of Congress to determine by law the term of office of barangay official unrestricted?
By the very wording, Your Honor, of Article 10, Section 8, as may be determined by law, it simply gives the impression that Congress is being given full discretion, full latitude to determine the length of the term of barangay officials and even the term limits for barangay officials. That seems to be the implication of the use of the word as may be determined by law.
Okay, does the Constitution provide for any prohibition or limitation with respect to the length of the term and the allowable number of consecutive terms of office of barangay officials?
Well, basing it on the same constitutional provision, there appears to be none. Full discretion is given to the legislature.
Once Congress determines through a law the term of office of barangay officials, does this determination apply to a particular election period only, or does it apply to subsequent election periods?
Until that law is amended, then that law will continue to be in effect until such time that Congress changes it. So it does not apply to any particular election period. It will continue to apply for even for subsequent elections until such time that Congress finds it necessary to amend or repeal that law. Your Honor.
Thank you. Can Congress subsequently change the term of office of barangay officials through an amendment or repeal of a prior law fixing such term of office?
Your Honor, I think that that can be done because it's a legislative enactment and it's within the plenary power of Congress to amend, repeal, or modify any law which it has previously enacted.
Can Congress, pursuant to its authority under Article 10, Section 8, to determine the term of office of barangay official, postpone or cancel the scheduled barangay elections? In other words, does the power to determine the term of office includes the power to postpone or cancel a scheduled barangay election?
Your Honor, in our submission, we are saying that the power of Congress to postpone a barangay election is separate from its power to determine the term of barangay officials, their term of office. We are saying that the power to postpone barangay elections for such causes as, let's say, a health epidemic, like the COVID pandemic, Your Honor, arises from the Congress's plenary power and not necessarily from its power to fix the term. Because when Congress postpones a scheduled barangay election, it is for a specific reason and not for the purpose of affecting the term of the incumbent barangay officials.
Okay, so therefore, you agree with me that aside from the grounds cited in Section 5, Congress can, in its wisdom, provide for other causes or reasons or basis to cancel an election or postpone the election.
Definitely, Your Honor. Congress is not limited by the very limited grounds enumerated in Section 5 of Republic of PP 881 or the Omnibus Election Code.
Now, under Article 9C, Section 2, Item 3 of the Constitution, the Commission on Election is granted the power to decide, except those involving the right to vote, all questions affecting elections. Does this power of COMELEC to decide all questions affecting election precludes the power of Congress to amend or repeal a law fixing the schedule of barangay elections?
Pardon me, Your Honor, who's precluded from amending?
Congress. Does this power of COMELEC to decide all questions affecting election precludes the power of Congress to amend or repeal a law fixing the schedule of barangay elections?
Definitely not, Your Honor. As I said, this power on the part of Congress is plenary.
Okay. Now, the totality of government power is said to be contained in three great powers of government: police power, the power of eminent domain, and the power of taxation. Considering that RA 11935 does not involve the taking of private property, nor does it impose any tax or revenue measure, then we can also agree that it involves the state exercise of police power. Do you agree, Mr. Solicitor General?
Um, Your Honor, the matter of postponing elections may or may not involve police power, depending on the reason for the postponement.
Now, for particular this RA 11935, would you say that this is the enactment of this is in pursuant to the exercise of the legislature of the police power, of the state police power?
As far as I know, based on the journal and records of Congress, the matter of postponing this barangay election scheduled in December does not involve the state's police power, Your Honor.
Now, it appears from the title, Mr. Solicitor General, it does not explicitly provide any justifying reason for the postponement of the barangay election. Do you agree? There is no whereas clause there that says this is the reason.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, the absence of any reason stated in the law itself, does it affect the validity or constitutionality of RA 11935?
No, I don't think it affects in any way the validity of the enactment, Your Honor. As I mentioned earlier during my opening statement, the matter of postponing elections is essentially a political question that goes into the wisdom. It's a question of policy on the part of the Congress. And unless there is a showing that there was grave abuse of discretion on the part of Congress, then we believe that judicial scrutiny is very much limited. And for that purpose, I think the reason why Congress does not include the reason for the postponement is that precisely it is a political question.
Now, I would like to ask my last question regarding COMELEC's preparation on whether it has logistical capability as of this time to conduct the barangay election on December 5, 2022. Uh, Earlier, Chairman Garcia already explained this statement stated yesterday that at this point in time, it is impossible for COMELEC to conduct the December 5, 2022 election. Can I request the chair to please approach and for some questions?
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Mr. Chair, why do you say that it is impossible for COMELEC to conduct at this point in time the December 5, 2022 election?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Upon the signing by the President on October 10, 2022 of the law, we suspended the printing of the ballots simply because the ballot does not reflect the date that the election will be continued, which will be October 31 of next year, 2023. And if we are to count the number of ballots that had not been printed during this period from October 10 to the present, then if we are supposed to print 3 million ballots per day, 12 days, then that will be about 36 million ballots, Your Honor. And from now to the conduct of election by December 5, it's almost at least 44 days. Definitely, Your Honor, will not be able to finish printing the ballots. Now, as regards the other election paraphernalia, such as, for example, indelible ink, we had been preparing for the procurement of indelible ink. But however, indelible ink will be expiring by 1 year. And so if we will proceed with the procurement of indelible ink even after the signing by the President on October 10, then, and there is already a law which says that the election is postponed, then definitely by next year, all of this indelible ink will dry up. So surely we will not proceed with the procurement of the indelible ink. Such other election paraphernalia, Your Honor, we have a legal issue. And the legal issue is whether we can legally proceed with the procurement despite the postponement of the election. And so we instructed our law department to inquire and to make a recommendation to the COMELEC NBank what the COMELEC NBank will be doing as regards the pending award of contract, the pending the notice to proceed, because we do not want to violate any auditing rules, and we do not want that COA will be giving notices to the commission as far as these awards are concerned. So we are in a dire predicament, Your Honor. So material time, we do not have anymore, Your Honor. It's really not viable and feasible at this time.
Thank you, Chair. I have no further questions. Thank you, Petitioner Makalintal, for your answers. Thank you, Solicitor General, for your answers. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, po, CJ.
Thank you, Justice Ko. May we call on Justice Dimampao to do the interpellation?
Thank you, Chief, for the petitioner, Attorney Makalintal. I have only very few questions. Some of my questions have been asked already. Attorney Makalintal, Section 8, Article 10 of the 1997 Constitution provides that the term of office of elective barangay officials shall be determined by law. You
Yes.
agree
Yes,
that,
Your Honor.
this is an express power specifically granted to the legislature by law is than the Constitution?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you also agree that if the Constitution or laws confer express powers, certainly implied powers are granted, which are necessarily included in the
Yes, Your Honor.
so, so does the power of Congress, express power of Congress to determine the term of elected public officials impliedly include the power to postpone the elections, barangay elections?
While Congress has expressed or implied powers, Your Honors, to do that, the exercise of these powers must be within the bounds of the Constitution. So much so that I again go back to my position that this particular law postponing the barangay elections is not constitutional because it extends the term of office of the barangay officials, depriving us, the voters, of our right to choose our own leaders.
It's your postulation that it does not necessarily express power of Congress to determine the term of elected public officials or barangay officials uh, does not impliedly include the power to postpone
Yes, Your
elections.
Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Section 2, Article 9C of the 1997 Constitution provides for the powers and functions of the Commission on Elections. In your petition, you cited paragraphs 1, 2, 3 of Section 2 of Article 9C of Constitution to justify the power of COMELEC to postpone elections. In Pidol versus COMELEC, promulgated on December 3, 2009, the SCRA 606, page 554, the Supreme Court categorized the three powers of COMELEC into three, namely administrative, quasi-judicial, and quasi-legislative. Where would the power to postpone elections fall into?
Well, it falls in the administrative and quasi-judicial power of the Commission on Elections. The administrative power to conduct the election or postpone the election, and its quasi-judicial function to determine the causes, Your Honors.
Do you have clear-cut jurisprudence to that effect?
Well, I am sure there are, Your Honor, but I am not prepared to manifest it today, Your Honors.
In KIDA versus Senate, promulgated on February 28, 2012, which you cited in your petition, would you agree that the court ruled that Congress has no authority to extend the three-year term limit under the Constitution for certain elective local officials?
Yes, Your Honor, the term could not be extended. I think in the case of KIDA, the term was not extended, but there were appointments made. I see, Your Honors.
So, Attorney Macalintar, you would also agree that in the same case, the court recognized that holdover provisions are valid in cases referring to elective barangay Risky Kabataan officials whose terms of office are not explicitly provided for in the Constitution.
I think only the Sangguniang Kabataan, Your Honors, they were allowed to hold over in the KIDA case.
I think,
Yeah, I think, Your Honor, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I think, Your Honor, the cases cited in KIDA does not apply to the instant case, Your Honor, because what was discussed there was the validity of the COMELEC's postponement of election due to failure of election, Your Honors. That was in the KIDA case. And the holdover of the incumbent officials there was due to the failure of election, which is not the case in this particular petition, Your Honors. That is how I recall the case of KIDA, Your Honors.
there is jurisprudence to that effect that holdover provisions are valid.
I think, Your Honor, even in the Kida case, there is also a discussion on the unconstitutionality of holdover positions, Your Honor, in the Kida case.
In three cases, two of them have been mentioned by Sojen Guevara, Adap versus Comelec, Sambarani, and there is another one, Montes Claros. Montes Claros versus Comelec. The Supreme Court invariably held that holdover is allowed in cases involving barangay and SK Kabatayan officials. How would you now reconcile your theory with these Katinaw cases?
No, Your Honor, I think in the Kida case, Your Honor, it also emphasized that holdover is unconstitutional.
Okay,
May I just discuss that, Your Honor, in my memorandum, Your Honor? I'm sorry, I am getting confused now with these cases, Your Honors.
okay. You made mention about the state principle policy and referring to Article 2, Section 26, Article 2 regarding equal opportunity to equal access opportunity public office. What is your view? Is this a guiding principle?
I submitted in my oral arguments, Your Honors, that it violates the equal, the right to opportunities, of public service. And I cited, Your Honors, the number of possible barangay candidates who would be affected or were previously affected by previous postponement of the barangay elections, Your Honors.
What is the prevailing jurisprudence regarding the right to run for elective office? Is it an absolute right?
Yes, Your Honor, it is an absolute right as long as he has all the qualifications for that particular position.
Is that the ruling of the court in Quinto versus Comelec? 627, Philippine 193, propagated in 2010?
I do not recall, Your Honor, if that was the ruling, but insofar, my humble opinion, Your Honor, is that once you have all the qualifications, then you have the absolute right to run for that public office.
Can the said right be subject to certain limitations? Marquez versus Comelec?
Yes, it could be subject to limitations if there are questions on the qualifications of that particular candidate, Your Honor.
In your view, the plenary power of the Comelec under the 1987 Constitution includes the power to postpone elections.
Yes, Your Honors.
You would also agree that Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code define the parameters of the exercise of this power by Comelec.
Yes, Your Honors.
The Omnibus Election Code is enacted by the legislature. Correct?
Yes, Your Honors.
How would you now reconcile this with your postulation that Congress encroached on the Comelec's power to postpone an election?
Well, while the Congress was the one that enacted that particular law, the Congress is also mandated to follow that law, Your Honors.
Thank you. That will be all.
Thank you very much, sir.
May I now ask the Sojen to ask very only a few questions?
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Sojen Guevara. The Republic Act 11935 expressly state the rationale behind the postponement of the December 5, 2022 barangay elections.
No, it did not, Your Honor.
Based on the legislative records, such as the sponsor's speech of Senator Amy Marcos, one of the primary reasons for the postponement is to buy Congress some time to propose measures to improve the current barangay and BSK systems. In your view, would you say that this is analogous to the grounds for postponement enumerated in Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code?
No, Your Honor, that is not analogous to the grounds that were specifically mentioned in Section 8 of PP 881.
So, did the Republic Act 11935 effectively override Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code?
No, Your Honor, because the basis is certainly different from the grounds enumerated in Section 5 of BP 881. It has nothing to do with terrorism, nothing to do with loss of election paraphernalia, force majeure, and analogous reasons.
Does the body of the law now contradict the main subject found in its title?
No, certainly not, Your Honor. Everything that is included in the text of Republic Act number 11935 is adequately reflected in its title.
Would you agree, Sergeant Guevara, that the general purpose or object of Republic Act 11935 is to postpone the December 5, 2022 barangay elections?
Yes, Your Honor, it was postponed for the reasons given by Congress and not for any purpose to affect, to extend, or modify in any way the term of office of existing barangay officials because their term actually expires, and between the expiration of their term and the new elections, it will be simply a case of holdover.
Thank you. In your view, is there any express prohibition which bars Congress from fixing any term of office for barangay officials?
There is none, Your Honor. The power given to Congress to determine the term, the length of term, and the number of terms of barangay officials is plenary and is not was not made subject to any restrictions or limitations.
Are you familiar with the case of David versus Comelec?
I've heard about the case, Your Honor.
Would you agree that in the SID case, the court ruled that the intent and design of the legislature to limit the term of barangay officials to only 3 years as provided under the local government code? The court ruled that the intent and design of the legislature is to limit the term of barangay officials to only 3 years as provided for under the local government code.
Yes, Your Honor, until such time that Congress finds it necessary or proper to amend that law, as it did a few years later when it amended that law to make it 5 years instead of 3.
Okay, my last question, based on page 43 of your comment, you expressed the view the altering of the terms of public officers is entirely within the control of Congress, absent any constitutional limitation. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, with respect only to barangay officials.
If Congress decided to alter the terms of barangay officials by amending prevailing laws instead of postponing the December 5, 2022 barangay elections, what would be its effect?
Well, the amendment will take effect, in my opinion, Your Honor, prospectively. If there is an express amendment of the existing law to make a new term or to increase the term, as the case may be, then it will be implemented for the succeeding elections.
Had Congress had Congress extended the term of the barangay officials, would it render more unacademic these December 5 barangay elections? But here, Congress opted not to extend the term, but to postpone the barangay elections.
That's exactly what we were saying, Your Honor. There was no extension of term of barangay officials under Republic Act number 11935. It was a postponement of the elections. So the term would end on December 5 as originally scheduled, but they will continue to serve in a holdover capacity only, Your Honor.
Thank you, Sergeant Guevara. That will be our chip.
Thank you,
Thank
Justice
you, Your Honor.
Mambaw. Justice Jolo Lopez will do the interpretation.
Thank you, Chief. If I may call Petitioner Attorney Makalintal to answer some of my questions. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
I don't think I have to repeat the questions already asked by my colleagues, but I would rather ask questions or follow-up questions on the response you have already so far made. Now, I don't know if I heard you correctly when you admitted that Congress has the plenary power to determine the election date and the power to postpone election, except for that particular section, Section 5 of the Election Code, which supposedly vests the power to postpone election exclusively on COMELEC.
Yes, Your Honor. My position is that Congress has the plenary power to determine the term of office. But once that is determined, then that is the term of office for the barangay officials who would be elected for that particular period. Now, if the term of office will be amended, then the amended term of office should apply to the future election and not to the to the incumbent barangay officials, Your Honor. Now, in this particular case, my contention is that it is not actually postponing, but it is actually extending the term of office of the barangay officials. The postponement, as I said, is a subtle way of increasing or extending the term of office without the mandate of the people.
Yes, Attorney Makalintal, I think there are two issues being raised in this case, which are different from one another. One is the legality to postpone election, and the other one, the constitutionality or legality of supposedly extending the term
Yes, Your
of
Honor.
office. So first, I would like to dwell on the legality of postponing the elections. So you were saying that Congress does not have the power. It is only vested in the COMELEC.
COMELEC, Your
And
Honor.
if there is no such power given on the COMELEC, then I suppose you agree that the power lies with Congress.
It might be that way, Your Honor, but considering that there is that power at present vested with the COMELEC, then the COMELEC should exercise that power, Your Honor.
Now, if we may go back to Section 5, which you are referring to in your petition of the Election Code, there are two limitations on the power of COMELEC to postpone. One, if there is no insurance that the COMELEC might be able to hold peaceful, orderly and honest election. And the second one, it must be done, and if I may quote it correctly, in any political subdivision.
Yes, Your Honor.
So I think it's very clear when you say in any political subdivision, can you interpret it to mean a national election? Because let me finish first, Attorney Makalintal. When you say any political subdivision, are you not referring to a place, a local subdivision like Ilocos, Marawi, Cebu, where there might not be there might be some reasons that they cannot hold an orderly, honest, and fair election, and not on a uh, nationwide election.
Yeah, sir, Your Honor.
Yes, please.
Well, when the law says any political subdivision, I would say that it applies nationally, Your Honor, because if all provinces, if all municipalities, if all barangays are affected by the causes to postpone the elections, then all these political units are now subjected to the postponement of the elections, Your Honor.
So you're saying all political units must come to the COMELEC and say that we cannot hold an orderly election to make it a nationwide or to make it nationwide.
Not necessarily, Your Honor, because the law says that any party interested or affected may file the petition.
But
So, if, for instance,
the limitation is on any, with emphasis on the word any political subdivision.
yes, Your Honor.
So the law is not very clear from my point of view, and of course you could say otherwise. Would it be referring to a national election, especially involving barangay elections?
Yes, Your Honor, because a political party, for instance, of national a national political party could file the petition, Your Honor, because if their constituency of a political party involves the entire nation, then they can do that, Your Honors.
Now, as early as 1980, Supreme Court has already decided in one case, I think it's Oxenia versus COMELEC, if I'm not mistaken, that the power to conduct elections or the conduct of election is inherently and traditionally lies with the legislative body. Have you heard of that?
The conduct of the election, Your
The
Honor.
conduct of election primarily and inherently lies with the legislative body, meaning the conduct of elections or the laws governing the conduct of elections should be and under the power of the legislative body.
I respectfully submit.
Postpone the election at that time because of the pandemic. Now, it was admitted by the President then of the United States that the powers to postpone elections generally vested in the Congress of the United States. And the Congress of the US refused to postpone the election. Now, as to the extended term, if the Congress, let's say, for argument's sake, that Congress decided to postpone the U.S. election at that time, the term of the U.S. president is definite. It ends and terminates at a certain date and time. I suppose it should be on January 20th, about noontime. Just like we have in our Constitution, the term of the president ends on June 30 at noontime. So if the term of the President of the United States ends on January 20th at about noontime, and the election was postponed when there is no term to extend anymore, the one who should be seated as president or acting president should be the Speaker of the House. And there is no holdover doctrine that should be made to apply. Is this correct?
Well, if that is the provision, I am not fully aware of the provision of the U.S. Constitution, but if the Constitution says so, then that would be applied, Your Honor.
But my point, Attorney Macalintal, is that if the term is definite, that it extends or it terminates at a certain point, date and time, there could not be any holdover.
There
But
could
yes,
there could be
but in the
holdover.
case of the barangay that we have, the barangay officers, is there any law or any part of any law which says that the term of barangay ends on this date and time?
No, because in this particular case, Your Honor, when they held the election on May 2018, the law applicable there says that the term of the barangay shall be 3 years, Your Honors.
Can you
Three.
specify that particular provision? Because from my own understanding, Attorney Makalintal, I don't know if I'm correct on this point, there is nothing in the law which says that the term of the barangay officers will end at a particular or specific date and time. So it will only terminate or it will only end if and when an election is held and the successors will be qualified.
And under Republic Act 10952, Your Honors, it is an act that postponed the October 2017 barangay and Sangguniang elections, and that the election there was postponed to May 2018. And under that particular provision, it says that subsequent synchronized barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections shall be held on the second Monday of May 2020 and every 3 years thereafter. So it means that those elected on May 2020 shall hold office for 3 years, Your Honors.
But what? But does it end after 3 years? It should have ended a long time ago. My
Yeah.
point is,
Precisely because they kept on postponing, Your Honors, and extending the term of
my
office.
point is there is no definite date and time by which it should be terminated. Meaning it will only be terminated or expired only after an election has been held and after the successors has come into office or taken their oath. So unless there is a next election,
No,
they will continue to hold office.
only,
Because their term does not expire.
well, that term will not expire, Your Honor, because the law extended their term of office. Just so much so that the term should have ended on May 2020, but the election of May 2020 was postponed to December 5, 2020, and every 3 years thereafter. So their term should have ended on sometime in December 2022. But because of this postponement, their term might end on October 2023.
Yeah, because
See, because of these postponements, we already got confused with all this.
but it doesn't say the definite time and date when it will expire. That is my point,
Well,
Attorney Makalintal.
the law, I agree with you, Your Honor, it is not very clear because it only says that the election shall be held on the second Monday of this month and every 3 years thereafter. So in other words, if you are elected for that particular period, you count 3 years, and that would be your term of office, Your Honor.
Now let's say that you are correct that the term ends at a certain point in time. But don't you think that the COMELEC, since it was also a creation of law, the legislative body passed a law granting that the election should be held on such date and time.
Yes, Your Honor.
Don't you think the Congress, as it's has the power also to amend the law earlier passed and say that there will be no election and the election will be held 1 year after?
Yes, Your Honor, but that would apply.
Otherwise, you will not be giving the power due to the Congress the right to amend its own law.
Well, the amendment, Your Honor, as I have stated, should apply prospectively and not retroactively, meaning the incumbent barangay officials has to submit to an election cover that particular amendment of the law.
Now, one last point, with the permission of Chief. Uh, there was a earlier case. I cannot remember. I think it's this happened in 1987. The snap election in 1986. the election was supposedly to be held 2 more years after, or so what happened? There was I don't know if it was a law passed by Congress or it was an executive fiat of the then President Ferdinand Marcos that the election should be held earlier, which we referred to as a snap election. Now, the Supreme Court then at that time did not say whether it's legal or illegal or constitutional or unconstitutional, but it said that since the election has been going on and the people have the expected, they are expecting an election already to come, and the process is ongoing. Comelec is ready, people are expecting to cast their vote, and so it has become a political issue that the court then gave way and said that the election must push through.
Being a political issue.
Yes. Do you think that in this case, despite the made by the honorable chairman of the COMELEC, that the COMELEC at this point in time may not be ready to conduct elections on December 5, do you think there is this reasonable expectation on the part of the people in general that the election must push through on December 5, 2022, or anytime close to that date?
Well, as I said, Your Honor, the law does not prohibit the COMELEC from fixing another date because of some circumstances beyond their control. So the December 5, 2022 elections could push through, Your Honors, because it was not the fault of the COMELEC that these delays were caused, Your Honor. It was the enactment of this law that prevented the COMELEC from pushing through with its preparation, Your Honor, or suddenly stop their preparation. In other words, the cause, Your Honors, of the delays is because of the passage of the law. Now, if this law is declared unconstitutional, then the people's right to vote should be respected. And how do we respect it? If the COMELEC is not ready on December 5, then the COMELEC could be directed to set another date close to December 5, where a clean, honest, and orderly elections could be held, Your Honors. Anyway, the term of office, I think, of those elected for this period, Your Honor, would still end by December 31. So we could still hold the election by December 26 or what, close to the termination of the term of office of the incumbent barangay officials.
So,
There is still time, Your Honor.
so
for
by
the government.
admission, you agree that the COMELEC does not have the necessary resources to conduct elections on December 5.
On December 5.
And it may be postponed, but on a date not too far from December 5.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is October 23 not close enough from your point of view to
No,
give
not
COMELEC
very
more
close.
time to prepare for it?
Not very close enough, Your Honor, just to give due respect to the right of the people to vote and the constitutional provision that the Congress has no power to postpone elections and to extend the term of office of these barangay officials, Your Honor.
Well, I don't want to encroach on the time allotted for my other colleagues. So thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justice Lopez. Do you have any questions to the Solicitor General?
No questions on the Solicitor General.
Thank you. Next to interpret is Justice Rosario.
Mayor, I request the petitioner to please approach the podium again. Yung plano tumakbo naman, ano?
Wala.
Wala kayong plano tumakbo.
Wala po.
Okay.
Nagsawa na po ako sa pagtakbo. Sabi ko sa inang doktor, brisk walking na lang.
And also, for the same purpose, there will be no questions, meaning questions that your answer might elicit rather. Okay, so this is my perception question actually has no bearing on the principal issues raised by your petition.
Mhm.
But just the same, I will ask this question if only to satisfy my curiosity. Okay.
Yes, sir.
As you are aware, this is not the first time you mentioned that earlier that Congress by and SK elections, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
While why file a case only now? Meaning, what makes RA 11953
So it's
different from the previous laws postponing the barangay elections such that it is only now that you question the postponement? Um, does this mean that all the previous postponed barangay and SK elections are void, attorney?
Uh, Your Honor, actually, in the past, in the previous laws passed by Congress postponing the barangay elections, I have been making comments, Your Honors, of the unconstitutionality of these laws. I have actually asked some friends in Congress if I could be invited during the deliberation of these laws, but I never got any invitation. If you will kindly Google or search some materials in the 2016 or even 2014 cases, it would show, Your Honor, how I questioned the constitutionality of, of all these barangay elections. Every time a barangay election is postponed, Your Honor, with the corresponding extension of term of office of the incumbent barangay officials, then I always made comment, Your Honors, and it is carried in the newspapers, radio, and television, Your Honors. But you are correct. I have not filed
So
any case.
this is in fact the first time that a case has been filed
Yes,
before
Your
the High
Honor.
Court of the land.
Yes, Your Honors. Because, pardon the word, I get fed up, Your Honors, with all these postponements made by our Congress, Your Honors. I believe that for the past so many years, when Congress postponed the barangay elections, I have been deprived of my right to vote.
Okay, attorney. Let's say at the outset, Congress fixed the term of barangay officials at say 5 years. Is this constitutional?
Yes, Your Honor. But that would constitute an amendment of the present law, which gives them 3 years. And so that amendment should apply prospectively, Your Honor, to
No.
future election.
How is this different from postponing the election so that the total term is 5 years?
What do you mean, Your Honor? Postpone the, not postpone, Your Honor, but amend the term of office of the barangay officials, Your Honors. Not necessarily postponed, because my contention, Your Honor, is that the postponement is actually an amendment of the term of office because the term of office is extended. So instead of postponing, I would say, Your Honor, that the law should be worded in such a way that it says that it amended the present barangay, the term of the present barangay officials. And the moment that is amended, then another election would be scheduled.
Okay.
And those who would be elected would have a 5-year term of office, Your Honor.
Since we are under time constraint, may I request you, attorney, to just limit your question, your answer to my questions,
Yes, Your Honor.
and to respond to answer. And be responsive rather to my questions.
Yes, sir.
I think first things first. Earlier, the Solicitor General insinuated that in the course of his presentation, that this is actually a political issue or question that we justices are forbidden to look into. There was no, tama nga ba yung understanding, no reason cited by the Congress in justifying the law that called for the postponement of this forthcoming election, December election. Do you agree with the observation made by Solicitor General Guevara that this is indeed a political question
I don't think this is
or issue?
a political question. It involves political positions, but the issue I brought before this honorable court is constitutional, Your Honor, on the validity of the enactment of this particular law.
So I suppose you will not also agree with the Solicitor General when he again stated that the intention of Congress is not actually to extend the term of office of the barangay chairman or captains. But parang ang nangyari, this was the that it was only incidental. And he
Well-
made mention of I don't know if I understood him correctly, that there was a practical necessity or justification for that.
The fact, Your Honor, is that the law does not state the reasons for the law. It does not state past, Your Honor. The whereas clause were never there, so that so that you could say that it does not explain to the people why the need for this postponement again. And as I said earlier, the entire body of the law does not state that it is postponing the December 5, 2022 elections. There is nothing clear in the law that it refers to the December 5, 2022 elections and up to when they are going to hold another election. Unlike in other laws, which says that the barangay election is postponed to another date, specifically stating the date. But here, it does not state. It postponed the December 5, 2022 elections without stating when it will be held again.
Okay. As I explained earlier, Attorney Makalintal, most of the questions I prepared have already been covered by the other justices who made the interpolation ahead of me. Pagka nadodoble na, just call my attention. Kasi I was not that I was not paying attention, pero I was focused on something else.
That's in your moments, Your Honors.
Anyway, on the matter of yes, you argued rather that the postponement of elections is tantamount to what the statutory appointment of incumbent barangay officials.
Yes, Your
Right. But as observed by the Solicitor General, when he made an enumeration of the the requisites of a valid appointment. Appointment necessarily means the power to choose the appointees, correct?
Mhm.
And Congress did not choose specific individuals to be appointed as barangay officials. Do you agree, sir?
Yes, Your Honor. But
And these barangay officials were in fact still previously elected by the people, correct?
yes, Your Honor.
How would you respond to that, sir?
Well, I think the requirements of a valid appointment cited by the Honorable Solicitor General refers to civil service appointments, but not in this particular case where the extension is tantamount to a legislative appointment. Because why are these officials there? They are there because of that law. And because of that law, they are practically legislatively appointed, Your Honors. You don't have to comply with all the requirements of appointments under the civil service law, Your Honor.
Okay, let's move on, attorney. Let's discuss this, yung synchronization.
Synchronization.
Okay. Under Ano ba yan? Section 1, RA 9164, di ba?
Yes, Your Honor.
It provides that there shall be synchronized barangay and sangguniang kabataang elections. Pagtapos na to, just, senyasan mo lang ako, no? If Congress can postpone the SK elections, as petitioner, you have admitted in your petition, how can the barangay elections be synchronized with SK elections if barangay elections will not be postponed as well? How can Section 1 of RA 9164 be implemented if the date of the barangay elections is different from the date of the SK elections?
I think I answered that already, Your Honor.
And I'll go to my next question then.
In that,
you would like to expound on your the
no
answer
more, Your
previously
Honor.
given? The case of they've been also covered by the earlier declarations made by. Okay. Wala na. They have. I don't know if.
Pwede na, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, it is your position that any postponement or adjustment of the barangay election must only apply to future elections.
Yes, Your Honor, as I stated earlier.
Now, what is your basis, Attorney Macarlintal, in invoking such limitation on the retroactivity of amendments to election-related laws, such that an amendment thereto should only refer to future elections but should not apply to the election of incumbent barangay officials?
Yes, Your Honor. As
Can
I
you
said,
cite a provision in the Constitution that expressly or impliedly restricts the retroactive application of election-related law, such as the now assailed postponement of the December 5, 2022 barangay elections?
I cannot recall of any specific provision, Your Honor.
That's
prohibiting-
understandable, senior moments perhaps.
Yes,
Go
Your
ahead.
Honor. But the fact that the Constitution gives Congress the power to determine, as stated by the Honorable Justice Indy, to determine the term of office. Now, once that term is determined and made into law, then that term should be the one applicable. If that term is amended, then the term should apply to another election. Otherwise, as what is happening now, it is postponing that election, but it is a subtle way of extending the term of office of these barangay officials. That is the reason why I cannot accept, Your Honor, that my right to vote has been deprived.
Well said. I think that will be my last question. Can I have just two questions for the Solicitor General.
Are
If I may.
fair through, Your Honor?
Ayoric, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very
and
much, sir.
for the clarification,
Maraming
sir.
po salamat, sir.
Apo.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Um, one of the reasons cited for the postponement is election fatigue. No, what is your basis for saying that the electorate is suffering from election fatigue? And is election fatigue a sufficient reason to postpone elections, sir?
Your Honor, my only reference material with respect to the purpose of the postponement of the barangay elections consists of the official records and journal of both chambers of Congress. And as far as the journal of the House of Representatives would show, apparently issues pertaining to the budget as well as proposed increases in the allowances for poll workers were among those that needed to be discussed. With respect to the records of the Senate, it would appear that the principal reason given by Congress, by the Senate, in their desire also to postpone the barangay elections was to have enough or some more time to discuss electoral reforms that would also affect the forthcoming barangay elections. And we were made to understand that because of their current engagement about the General Appropriations Act, they're very busy with the GAA. They would need more time to consider possible electoral reforms that would also affect the barangay elections. So, as far as the records would are concerned, Your Honor, this would appear to be the reasons. But again, as I earlier stated, regardless of the reasons, unless there is a showing that there is grave abuse of discretion on the part of Congress, this is really something that goes into the wisdom of Congress and therefore should not be looked into it being a political question.
As earlier observed, and this was admitted by the petition attorney Makalintal, that he did not even bother to allege in the petition itself that there was grave abuse of discretion to justify the invocation of the so-called expanded jurisdiction of this court. I recall Attorney Makalintal having responded to one of the questions made by one of my colleagues earlier. In any event, another reason cited for the postponement, Mr. Solicitor General, is that the funds can be used for economic recovery.
I have not seen any discussion regarding that alleged purpose. Your Honor, from a lawyer's point of view, I think there might be some complications if funds allotted for elections will be transferred or realigned for something like that. But frankly, Your Honor, I have not seen anything in the records that would tend to show that that was the purpose.
This one is my next and maybe last question is pertains to again the term of office, so that when the people vote for their barangay officials, they expect them to serve only for the term initially fixed by Congress, sir. The mandate given by the people is only for that specific term, right? Now, isn't postponement a violation of this mandate, in your opinion, sir?
Your Honor, there are reasons being proffered by Congress for postponing the elections. And we have to respect those reasons given by Congress. If it somehow it results in quote unquote extending the term, although of course I do not subscribe to that view, because the matter of holding over is a concept which is far too different from extending one's term. But sadly, that is the case. So I guess we just have to live with it, Your Honor.
This question again would have no connection to the issues, but just the same. It's part of my list anyway. Now, during the height of the pandemic, the public was able to observe and assess the performance of their barangay officials. Shouldn't we give the people the earliest opportunity to accept accountability through ballots?
Your Honor, I suppose that matter has not been lost to the minds of our representatives in Congress, and they deem it fit that the best time to let these barangay officials be accountable for their performance would be on the date that they schedule the next elections. So unless we believe that that was tainted with discretion, then I guess we have to respect their decision that that moment of accountability should happen on the last Monday of October 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor General. I have no further question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Justice Rosario. May we call Justice Ramon Paul Hernando to do the interpellation.
Chief Justice Mario Lopez.
Oh, sorry, Justice Mario Lopez.
Thank you, Chief and Justice. I'm no sorry, but I think anyway, it's just a few questions. Most of the questions that I am supposed to ask were already asked by my colleagues. And this is just a simple question that I will address to Attorney Makalintal. Yes, it's almost good evening. It's almost good evening, Attorney Makalintal.
Yes, Your Honor. Alam ko po pagod na rin po kayo.
Yeah, that's why I will not prolong my your agony,
Yes.
but I will
Thank you so
shorten
much.
it already. I have a very simple question. We all agree that the Congress is the repository of legislation. And under the Constitution, such power of legislation may only be restricted by a specific provision, so that absent of a specific provision, all acts of legislation is deemed implied in that general power vested to the legislature. That is correct.
Yes, sir.
All right. My question is simple, such that what specific provision is found in the Constitution that will prevent the legislature from postponing an election?
I cannot recall of any provision that would deny Congress the power to postpone an election. But in this particular case, Your Honor, Congress is postponing it to extend the term of office of the barangay officials. And that is the reason why I say that there is grave abuse of discretion on the part of the Congress, because while it has the power to fix the term, it has no power to postpone the barangay elections, Your Honors.
Is there any specific provision to that effect, Attorney Makalintal?
Well, I cannot point at this now, at this specific provision, but the Constitution, insofar as the fixing of term of office of elected officials, is found under the Constitution, that the Congress has the power to determine the term of office of the barangay official. So the power is to determine the term and not the power to postpone the election, Your Honor. So there is no power granted by the Constitution.
In my basic knowledge of constitutional interpretation, in case of any doubt, that should be resolved in favor of the law. And if it is in favor of the law, unless there is a specific prohibition, textual interpretation would prevent the Congress from enacting a postponement of an election.
Well, in this particular case, Your Honors, with due respect, I would say that in case of doubt or conflict, then the conflict of doubt should be resolved in favor of the right of suffrage.
Because my interpretation, Attorney Makalintal, regarding the implied, I would say, what you are saying is an implied prohibition, but not a specific or express prohibition because of the effect or consequence of such postponement.
Yes,
Is
Your
that
Honor.
correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
If so, may I ask this question? Is the power or authority to postpone an election a legislative function or an administrative function?
That is the of
administrative
the
function
Commission on Elections, Your Honors.
that cannot be considered as a legislative function?
By the I don't think so, Your Honor. The Congress could pass the law, Your Honor, but Congress cannot have the power to implement that law.
So if it is an administrative function, there must be a law from which such administrative function is based.
Yes, Your Honor. I think we have cited the provision of Article 9C, giving that power to the Commission on Elections, the power to postpone the election, Your Honor.
All right. You said that it is an administrative function, Attorney Macalintal. And what administrative provision would provide that the COMELEC has the power to postpone an election?
As I said, Your Honor, Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code, and in connection also with Article 9C of the powers of the Commission on Elections, Your Honors.
Section 5?
Yes, Your Honor, giving the COMELEC the power to decide on issues pertaining to the postponement of of the election, Your Honor.
Is that the specific provision granting the COMELEC the power to postpone an election?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's not. I'm sorry, Attorney Macalintal.
Causes as enumerated therein, Your Honor.
Section 45 of Article 6 of the Omnibus Election Code mention about postponement of
Section 5.
Section 45?
5, Your Honor.
Section 5, I'm sorry, Article 6 of, and the grounds are stated therein.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honors.
Would you not consider this administrative function or duty based upon a specific provision or power of the legislature, and this is delegated to them, and such provision of Section 5 is not a grant but a limitation, or is it a grant?
Well, it is a grant of power, Your Honor, by the law itself. The Omnibus Election Code, as enacted by Congress, gave that power to the Commission on Elections, Your Honors.
And at the same time, there is a limitation.
No, the limitation could perhaps be on the causes, Your Honor, as long as the causes for the postponement are there.
Precisely. It is limited, one, when there is a failure of election by reason of the circumstances that are enumerated, like terrorism,
violence,
etc., etc.
Yes,
and
Your
therefore, the matter of postponement is not an original function or duty of the COMELEC,
Well,
but it's simply a delegated authority by the legislature or the Constitution to that matter.
Yes, Your Honor. But under the present Constitution, Your Honor, but the Omnibus Election Code was passed in 1984, I think in 1984.
But we are under
And
1987 Constitution.
And this law is still existing at present, Your Honor.
Anyway, Attorney Macalintal, as I have said, many questions have been asked, and just a clarification. Now we have clarified that the matter of postponement is a administrative function, as you have stated.
And it becomes a quasi-judicial function if ever a petition is filed to that effect, Your Honor.
Therefore, there must be a law from way or a constitutional basis of this administrative function.
The law itself, Your Honor, Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code, as amended by, I think, Republic Act 7166.
Cannot the Congress, Section 5 being a statutory provision, amend or revise the same?
I would say, Your Honor, that the Congress can amend, Your Honor. Why not? But what the issue here, Your Honor, is this act of Congress changing the term of office of the barangay officials in the guise of postponing the election. But the truth of the matter, as I submit, Your Honor, is that it extends the term of office of the barangay officials depriving me of my right to vote or to choose my own barangay officials.
Thank you, Attorney Makalintal.
Sir, salamat po, sir.
Because my colleague had already discussed much about this consequence of holdover, etc.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The Solicitor General, just one point.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Solicitor. Just one point. The issue of postponement, would you say some effect, or what effect does it have to the right of suffrage?
Your
If the
Honor,
I'm
sorry.
Continue. Sige.
Your Honor, the matter of postponing any election does not really have any effect on the right of suffrage. It has an effect on the exercise of that right of suffrage, but not on the right itself. Because voters are not deprived of their constitutional right to vote. It's just that the timing of the exercise of that right affected. So, insofar as the right itself is concerned, the postponement of the elections does not have any impact on the right of suffrage.
Mr. Solicitor, can we not accept the proposition that suffrage involves the right to vote as well as the right to be voted upon?
Yes, Your Honor.
Therefore, if that election is postponed, it has, at the very least, some effect over the exercise of that right.
Yes, Your Honor. It is deferred because precisely of the postponement.
And therefore, there is a restriction of the right of an individual.
No, Your Honor, there is no restriction on the right. It is just being deferred. The voter will actually be able to exercise that right at the newly appointed time.
What would be then the reason for that suffrage to be postponed? Or
Well, we leave that to the sound judgment of the legislature, Your Honor, as it has found so many acceptable and justifiable reasons for postponing barangay elections in the past. The most recent one of which is the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, which led to the cancellation of the elections scheduled in May of 2020 and its postponement to December 5, 2022.
as I was saying, there must at least have some cause or some effect on the electorates when an election is postponed. And what guarantee or what alleviation can we make so that this election cannot be postponed every now and then indiscriminately?
Your Honor, the Constitution itself does not provide any specific limitation on the power of Congress to determine the term or the number of terms of barangay officials. So we just have to leave that to the wisdom.
So, in short, Mr. Solicitor, we can indefinitely postpone an election involving barangay officials.
Not indefinitely, Your Honor, because there should always be a new date. When barangay elections are postponed, then Congress is expected by the new date on which the elections would be held.
Is there a new date already fixed by 11/11/39?
Yes, Your Honor. That law specifically says that the election will be conducted on the last Monday of 2023. For as long as that date is determinable, Your Honor, I don't think that it is necessary to specify the actual date because it's something that can be determined.
It is determined, but once determined, there is no prohibition or saying that it will push through and that it will be postponed again.
That is a possibility, Your Honor, but that all depends on the circumstances that will be maybe prevailing during that time. So we cannot really speculate on what may happen during that time. That's why we have this Congress to guide us in order to, well, if nothing untoward happens and everything is ready
Just-
for, then perhaps we can help. We can hold the elections as scheduled in October of next year.
Can we use the strict scrutiny test to determine such validity of the act of the Congress? In
Your Honor,
case the election will be postponed again.
It all depends, Your Honor, on whether we are talking about any due process
Yes.
violation. But in this particular case, as I stated earlier, we do not see any issue pertaining to a due process
Yes.
violation of the Constitution.
I bring that issue because the petitioner had mentioned about this due process issue. At any rate, thank you, Mr. Solicitor General, and good evening.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Justice Mario. Justice Hernando will be the next to interpret.
Thank you, Chief Justice. May I please direct my questions at Petitioner Attorney Makalintal? Good afternoon, Attorney Makalintal.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
I've been wondering why you've taken to task Congress for coming up with this law, but not the president who signed it into law. Why? Why have you not taken the task?
Well,
The president to task for signing this into law.
Well, that's precisely why I have implemented, Your Honor, the office of the president.
But only as implementer, no?
Yes, as an implementer, Your Honor.
But not for signing it. The president, I mean.
Well, I think that is already included, Your Honor, in that in my petition, Your Honor.
All right. Anyway, how is disenfranchisement defined or understood in our election laws?
Well, disenfranchisement, Your Honor, means that a voter is denied of his right to vote, Your Honor. So much so that in this particular case, it is my contention, Your Honors, that when incumbent barangay officials are given an extension of their term of office, then they have practically taken away our right to vote. And that constitutes disenfranchisement of the enfranchised voters, Your Honor.
So it is a form of disenfranchisement, the act of postponing
Yes,
the elections.
and
For the barangay
extending the
officials.
term of office, Your Honors.
You must be familiar with the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights.
I'm not familiar, Your Honor. I would admit to that, Your Honor.
You should be, no, Mr. Makalinta.
I'm already too old
We
to...
signed on. We signed on to this convention the year of my birth in 1966.
Oh, you're still very
And
young,
then
Your
we
Honor.
ratified it in 1986. And it's a convention that has been passed by the United Nations, consistent with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this involves the right to vote. The convention recognizes that every citizen has a right to take part in public affairs, and the embodiment of that taking part is through the exercise of the will of the people through voting. And the convention says that the right to vote includes the right to vote and to be elected at genuine periodic elections. Genuine periodic elections.
Well, it's a convention that's due to you, but having heard that, how would you interpret that, Petitioner Makalinta?
Well,
Genuine periodic elections.
I agree, Your Honor. Genuine periodic election, which means
This
that
act of postponing does not or is transgressive of genuine periodic elections.
I would say
to
yes,
which
yes,
the
Your Honor.
Philippines has acceded as a state party to the convention.
Yes, Your Honor. Postponing and extending the term of office, Your Honor, is a violation of having a genuine periodic election. Precisely all these laws on barangay elections, they contain a specific term of office for the barangay officials to be elected. But what has happened in the past and up to the present, they kept on changing and amending this period of elections. And at the same time,
I guess what you're trying to say to us is yung right to vote ng isang tao, pag binoto ka, sabi ng tao sa'yo, ito hanggang 3 years ka lang.
yes, that is our
Kasi
contract.
nung nagbumoto kami sa'yo, ito yung batas.
Yes, Your Honor. Precisely, I was saying that ito ang ating kontrata. When I wrote your name in the ballot, I know that I am only paying you for 3 years. The ballot does not say that you should be extended. Now, once the term is extended, that violates that contract between me and that particular candidate, Your Honor.
Of course, that's not absolute. No?
Well, I would say
there should be exceptions, I would suppose.
I think that could be an absolute observation, Your Honor, because the moment you are denied your right and you were in
Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code is not an exception.
I won't say not an exemption, Your Honor, but
It
is
provides
actually
for postponements by the COMELEC, as you
yes,
are
Your Honor.
insisting, under certain conditions, no?
Yes, I would say, Your Honor, that that is actually a protection of the right of the voting public, Your Honor, because if there are really serious causes that that would justify the postponement of election to ensure a clean and honest and credible election, then COMELEC can exercise that power, and the exercise of that power is would constitute a protection of the right of the voters' right to vote, Your Honors.
Mm. This current crop of barangay officials, how long have they been sitting there in the barangay halls? Petitioning?
To date, I think they are already there for 4 years.
So they were elected in 2018.
2018. But some of them were re-elected. They were there since 2013. 2013, we had the barangay election, and they stayed there until 2015. No, 2013 up to 2018. That was 5 years. Now, those who ran for re-election and were re-elected, they are serving from May 2018 up to the present. And if they will be
Their
extended
term should have ended last year, no?
last year, Your Honor, last year.
But in 2020, it was the 2021 barangay elections were scrapped
The May 2020 elections was postponed to December 5, 2022.
due to the pandemic, no?
Well, there is no specific reason stated in the law, Your Honor. We don't know. But I'm just wondering why they are saying that cause the postponement, because we were able to hold a national and local elections last May 2022. Still at the height of the pandemic, Your Honors. So I don't believe that the pandemic would be the cause of the extension of the term of office of these barangay officials, Your Honors.
Yes. On the other hand, the state can also argue that the members of Congress who just passed or enacted this law are the very same ones who are exercising the will of the people, no?
Yes, Your Honor.
Because they have obviously been elected into that office by the people. So now there has to be a balancing somewhere between a congressman's or a legislator's exercise of his rights as representative of the people and the very right of the people or the will of the people.
As a matter of fact, Your Honor, I would even say that this abuse of power, Your Honor, could be used as a political propaganda by these people who had the power to amend the law. Because they could always tell the barangay officials that if you elect me, then I will extend your term of office. If you elect me, sigurado may extend ka, you will stay there. Gaano katagal yun? Basta akong bahala dyan, tatagal ka dyan. Anyway, wala makakapagreklamo sa atin. Si Makalintal lang siguro kung isusustain ng Supreme Court. So that would happen, Your Honor. The political propaganda could be used to influence all these barangay captains to vote for a particular candidate or a particular political, the candidates of a particular political party, with the promise that their term will be extended. It might be both buying, di ba, George, pero hindi na po pwede siguro because that is the law.
When did the current Congress start deliberating on postponing these barangay elections?
I cannot recall, Your Honor, when they started deliberating.
Well, obviously after the May elections.
Yes, after the May election, Your Honor. So
they enacted it on September 28, and then the president signed it into law October 10.
Yes, Your Honors. Okay.
So had the president signed it September 29, based on what the chair of the COMELEC has been telling us, there would have been sufficient or adequate time for them.
Yes, Your Honor. But I still
administer the elections this December.
But I would still submit, Your Honors, that COMELEC has all the time, Your Honor. If this honorable court will sustain my petition, it has all the time. And the people will be very, very happy to exercise their right of suffrage, Your
Honor. Well, but you do recognize that COMELEC can postpone the elections under certain conditions.
Because of some causes, Your Honors, that that might cause the the holding of a that will affect the holding by orderly, credible election. COMELEC can do that, but
under justifiable reasons.
Yes, but while it can postpone, it is mandated by law to proceed with the election on a date very close to the date it was scheduled, upon the cessation of the cause of the postponement of the election, Your Honor.
It would not constitute a disenfranchisement.
No more, Your
as long as it is justified.
Yes, Your Honor. As long as it is pursued, Your Honor, by the Commission on Elections after the cessation of the cause of the postponement.
But you would agree that the postponements transgress the genuine periodic elections.
Yes, Your Honor.
Standards.
Yes, Your
under
Honor.
the International Convention on
Yes, Your Honor.
Civil and Political Rights.
Especially if the postponement is done without any valid reason at all, Your Honors.
All right. Thank you, Petitioner.
Thank you very much, Your Honors, and I will look into that convention papers, Your Honor.
You better do.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for the information.
No questions for General Guevara.
Thank you, Justice Mon Hernando. Can I now ask Justice Ben Caguiwa?
Thank you. Can I call my friend, Solicitor General Guevara? My questions are for you.
Good afternoon,
Your Honor. The power of Congress to determine the term of barangay officials is Article 10, Section 8, correct?
Article 10, Section 8, Your Honor.
Of the Constitution.
Yes, Your Honor.
And I have heard it mentioned a lot of times, and you yourself have mentioned it, that this power of Congress is plenary.
Yes, Your Honor.
Almost limitless.
Subject to certain limitations.
Such as?
Such as the provision in the Bill of Rights that prevents Congress from enacting bills of attainder, ex post facto laws.
Understood.
Etc.
With specific reference to Article 10, Section 8, limitless?
based on the provision of that particular provision, there seems to be no limitations imposed on Congress on the matter of determining the term
period,
of
the term.
barangay officials.
That's right. And that is why we have had experiences in the past where the term has been set at 3 years, then some have been set at 5 years.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Let me push boundaries here to Mr. General. Can Congress set it at 10 years?
That is possible because there's no prohibition to set it at 10 years,
Can Congress set it at 50 years?
Your Honor.
Can Congress set it at 100 years?
Well, of course, this all goes also technically, theoretically, yes, but of course, that will all depend on the deliberations of Congress. If they believe that setting a term of 50 years
or 100,
it's reasonable or unreasonable. I mean, we, of course, view our representatives in Congress as reasonable human beings. That's why we voted for them.
That's where I'm going. So therefore, the law has to be reasonable. Do you agree?
Yes, Your Honor. I will
And
agree
therefore,
with
the court, the Supreme Court, can inquire into the reasonableness of the period fixed by Congress. Correct?
Hmm. As to the reasonableness of the period, if there are indications that the period determined by Congress is tainted with grave abuse of discretion, then
100
the
years.
answer is yes,
So
Your Honor,
100 years.
pursuant to your expanded power of judicial review.
For Congress to set the period for barangay officials at 100 years, isn't that grave abuse of discretion?
I myself would say yes, Your Honor.
Because you are denying generations of Filipinos from exercising the right of suffrage. Correct?
Not only that, Your Honor, 100 years.
So, if I'm allowed, if the court is allowed to go into the reason of the law, let me go to the reasons of this law. All right? I've done my own research, or I should say my lawyers have. And there were some proposed bills from which this final iteration came about. There was a proposal by Senator Win Gatchalian. There was a proposal by Senator Jinggoy Estrada. And a proposal from Senator Francis Escudero. Do you confirm that these were the progenitor proposals from which this law came from?
Yes, Your Honor.
And I noticed that the reason that they give is economic. The reason is that in the words of Senator Escudero, finally, and I quote him, finally, the bill enables the government to realign a portion of the 8.44 billion appropriations for the barangay and SK elections towards interventions aimed at sustaining our current momentum in addressing the coronavirus pandemic and achieving our collective socio-economic objectives. Do you confirm that that's the reason?
I have not seen actually the draft bill as proposed by the said senator. Your Honor, that's why I cannot confirm or deny.
These are all downloaded from the website of Senate. So in the explanatory note for the proposal of Senator Estrada, he says in paragraph 2, furthermore, our country is still in the midst of a pandemic brought about by COVID-19. Our country has not yet fully recovered from the havoc brought about by the pandemic. The budget in the amount of 8 billion for the conduct of the said election can be used to fund economic programs and health services to ease the effects of pandemic to all Filipinos, particularly to those who were greatly affected. Again, do we have any question that these are the reasons given for the passage of this bill?
I am not in a position to confirm, Your Honor, because I have not seen it.
Since the chairman is here of COMELEC, can I ask him to confirm whether or not, in fact, these are the reasons propounded by Senate for this bill?
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
Good afternoon.
When we appear before the House of Representatives, that would appear to be the reason given by the members of the House But when we appeared before the Senate, we were not given that particular reason. But since the Honorable, Your Honor had mentioned that, then it would appear to be the same reason as given to us by the House of Representatives.
Okay. My question goes precisely to the reasons. If the reason is shown to be false or non-existent, does that allow the court to step in and say that this law was issued with grave abuse of discretion?
Can I answer that, Your
Yes,
Honor?
please.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Well, of course, under Article 8, Section 1 of the Constitution, you have the expanded power of judicial review, and that is a new innovation of the 1987 Constitution, especially if there is grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of jurisdiction. If that is the case, if the reason does not conform to what is legally acceptable, then that is grave abuse of discretion, I would say.
And therefore, the court will be allowed to look into the authenticity or to the validity of this law because the reason given for the law simply does not exist.
I would agree, Your Honor.
Correct?
Yes.
In other words, the proposition is just talking about plenary power of Congress, just talking about political question. The Congress cannot issue a law simply because gusto nila. There must be a reason, right?
Technically, Your Honor, under Article 8, Section 1, there is no more political question. Technically, under the Constitution right now, political questions are things of the past, simply
Correct.
because you can always inquire.
That's why the law need not say the reason for the law, but there must be a reason for the law. Are we agreeable to that?
We agree, Your Honor, in the Commission.
Are we agreeable, Mr. Solicitor General?
Of course, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, can I call back Chairman? I have a basic conundrum here. Article 9, Section 5 of the Constitution, speaking of constitutional commissions, says the commission, and this includes the Commission on Elections, shall enjoy fiscal autonomy. Their approved annual appropriations shall be automatically and regularly released. Correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
In common parlance, isang bagsakan lang to, di ba?
Tama po, Your Honor.
Kailan to binagsak?
It was given to us for this year, Your Honor, the
Yes.
8.441 billion pesos.
When was it given?
It was given sometime by sometime March of this year.
March of this year.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, the money is no longer with the Philippine Treasury, it is with you, correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And since you are a SIFAG or a constitutionally fiscally autonomous group, the alignment of these funds to fund social civic projects or other public projects is not by legislature, correct?
That's not by legislature.
It's by you.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, when they say that the money for this can be used for other projects, what are they talking about?
Due respect, Your Honor, I really do not know because as far as the law is concerned, it says that that the fund is subject to a continuing appropriation by the Commission.
Exactly. And that fund is earmarked, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
It's earmarked for elections.
That's
It
right.
cannot be used for any purpose other than elections.
You are correct, Your Honor.
It cannot be realigned by the President, by the Supreme Court Chief Justice, by the Senate President. It cannot be realigned because they're not COMELEC,
Only by the COMELEC. Your
only by you.
Honor. Yes, sir.
And therefore, when you give us a reason for this law that government can use that 8.8 billion to fight the pandemic, that is not a correct reason. Do you agree?
I would like to agree, Your Honor.
And therefore, we are now faced with a situation with a law that says it doesn't say what its reason is, but the proposed reason coming from the proposals do not appear to be correct. Correct?
That may be the conclusion that will be derived from the series of questions.
That's right. And therefore, the Supreme Court can in fact look into this law and say, bakit nga ba?
No doubt on the power of the Supreme Court to inquire into the validity and constitutionality of this law.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
That's it? That is good. Okay. Senior Associate Justice Marvick.
With
Your Honor,
Good evening, Solicitor General.
They-
As you may have noticed, we have reversed the procedure that we have now done reverse seniority. So the more junior members will ask, and then going up to the chief, so that we can go faster. With your leave, may I ask again the chair of COMELEC to take the podium. And I just want to remind the chair of the COMELEC that the Solgen is your lawyer. At any point, you may want to consult with him so that you do not contradict each other. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
So you said that you had 8 billion, more or less.
Yes, Your Honor. 8.441 billion pesos.
Okay, very good. And that 8.441 billion is still with you right now,
Yes, Your Honor.
plus or minus a few millions, correct? Because you have done the preparations.
That's right, Your Honor.
So last year, when they were considering the budget, they already knew, Congress already knew that there was a possibility, in fact, they gave you the capability to actually conduct the elections on December 5, 2022. Is that not correct?
That's correct, Your Honor. By giving us the money, Your Honor.
Yes. And before you entered COMELEC as chair, the COMELEC already knew, at least with the acting chair, I think it was acting chair Inting, they already knew that they were going to conduct after the national elections, the barangay and the Sangguniang Kabataan elections. Is that not correct?
That's correct. We're already preparing by that time, Your Honor.
So by the time that you were conducting the national elections, COMELEC was also looking forward, because I know all of you to be very good managers and administrators. You were already looking forward, preparing yourselves and your staff to conduct the barangay elections on December 5. Is that
Yes, Your Honor.
correct?
Yes, Your Honor, because we needed several months to prepare for the barangay and SK.
So you had the will, you had the capability, you had the experience, you had the funds to actually do it by, let us say, June of this year, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
By September of this year, you were also prepared to actually conduct it, correct?
That's right, Your Honor.
And the only thing that blocked you was not anything, was not your incapability, not your lack of management skill, not your lack of experience, not the lack of budget, but this law. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
In other words, the only thing that made it impossible for you to conduct the elections is this law that postponed it.
Yes, Your Honor. And we.
So the
we lost
reason
time.
for postponing the elections is not logistical, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. What about voter fatigue? You are in COMELEC. How do you measure voter fatigue? Or is there such a thing?
We have not heard of such a thing, Your Honor.
And because we are a state that is democratic and republican, it means that we are ready to conduct regular elections, correct?
As far as the COMELEC is concerned, yes, under Article
That is
9C.
why there is a COMELEC. As a matter of fact, that's why the COMELEC has been elevated to a constitutional commission, because we are supposed to be prepared to be conducting different types of elections and plebiscites and referenda and recall at any given time. Correct?
Correct, Your Honor. That's our constitutional duty.
I am so happy, Chair Garcia, that you have said that you have always been prepared, and the only reason that it has become improbable, because I want to remove the word impossible, is because of this law. Correct?
I will confirm that, Your Honor, yes.
Okay. Now, if the court issues a TRO, things that you mentioned, the expiry dates of the indelible ink, the problem with procurement goes away, correct?
In that case, in the event that the court will issue a TRO and we will be forced to proceed with the election by
I'm
December
sorry, Chair Garcia. Forced.
and we will be
You
compelled.
were prepared last year. You were prepared January. You were prepared in May. You were prepared in September. You are now still prepared, correct?
Yes, Your Honor,
Yes,
except.
so we are not forcing you.
Yes,
It is
yes, sir.
part of your entire management procurement plan that you were to conduct in December, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
So
Except
the only thing that made it confusing was that there was this law and suppliers suddenly were confused. COMELEC was confused until the petitioner Attorney Makalintal, a very seasoned practitioner like you, and the luminaries like you and Attorney Makalintal in election law filed this case. Now, there is now this confusion, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Yes. So, in other words, if we issue a TRO, you have no choice except to continue with your preparations, correct?
That is correct.
And if you continue with your preparations and find it difficult to conduct it on December 5, you have a provision in the Omnibus Election Code which says you can do it December 12th, correct?
We can do it after December 5 in accordance with Section 5
Yes, December
of
12.
Batas Pabansa 881.
Yes, December 13, correct?
That's right.
If you even want to do it, December 25, correct?
That's right, Your Honor.
Except that people will hate you because it is Christmas, correct?
Yeah, correct, Your Honor.
Yes, so-
Until the cessation of the cause
Yes.
for the...
So educate me. The word impossible is incorrect.
Well, at this point, Your Honor, at this point, if we are not to use Section 5 and we are to proceed with the
But
election,
Section 5 is part of your arsenal.
then in that case, Your Honor, it's not impossible.
It's not
If
impossible.
Section 5 will
In
be
fact,
used,
Chair, I have watched you in hearings and you did tell Congress that you can actually conduct it on December 5 before the law.
yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay. May I call the petitioner? A few brief questions. I want to pursue a very wise insight that was asked by my colleague, Justice Ricky Rosario, a while ago, and also Justice Caguio a while ago. When I voted for my barangay officials, I voted for them for 3 years,
Yes.
correct? I did not vote for them to be extended for 4 years, correct?
Just like me, Your Honor.
I did not vote for them to be extended for 10 years. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
When I voted for my representative in Congress, I did not vote for that representative in Congress to remove from me my sovereign prerogative to choose my barangay official, correct?
Correct you.
I did not vote for my senator when I voted for them to remove from me my sovereign prerogative to vote for the barangay officials that I want had I been of age, the sangguniang kabataan, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And by Congress exercising those rights, they therefore interfere with a very fundamental, primordial, essential right that I have as part of the most important constitutional organ of this government, the people. Correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the exercise of the people of that sovereign right, one of the most important exercise of that is what we call in law as suffrage. Correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The right to vote and to be voted upon. Let me just go through this very carefully. Do you agree with me that the very first provision of the Statement of Principles and Policies of our constitutional order provides, Section 1, Article 2, the Philippines is a democratic and republican state.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sovereignty resides in the people and all authority emanates from them, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So there is no primacy of the parliament in our jurisdiction. There is no plenary power of the legislature in our jurisdiction, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
There is no primacy of the executive in our jurisdiction. The primacy is people, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the people exercise that by promulgating a constitution, by electing officials, but by promulgating laws, it does not remove their essential powers with them.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you agree with me that the concept of sovereignty and democratic state means that there are certain rights, therefore, of our people which cannot be exercised by no one else
Yes,
except
but
them?
except us, Your
Yes.
Honor.
And this is the right in esse, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So when they are looking for specific text of the law, the Constitution, this is it, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The very idea of our constitutional order that the people is more primordial than the legislature, whatever it can do as a Congress or the executive. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you agree with me that a Republican government is the opposite of an authoritarian government?
Yes, Your Honor.
And an authoritarian government can be an authoritarian exercised by the executive or an authoritarian exercised by the representatives of the people abusing their power.
Yes, Your Honor.
Correct. And it is only the sovereign with notice of the term of office of who they vote to who can choose their representative.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And when the sovereign exercises their right to vote, included in that, you called it a contract, but I will call it a constitutional proviso that they had a term of office. Therefore, when I elected the barangay captain of Barangay Matandang Balara, I was electing him for 3 years only.
Yes.
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 Because after that 3 years, I wanted Attorney Makalintal to be the barangay captain of Barangay Matandang Balara. That would have been possible, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. But the problem is I'm from Las Piñas, Your Honor.
Oh, yes, and I would have committed a violation of the law. But that nonetheless,
Sorry about that, Your
the
Honor.
concept is we are voting for a person in a term.
Yes, Your
And
Honor.
Congress has the prerogative to change the term,
Yes, Your
to
Honor.
change the powers,
Yes.
correct? But
Yes.
they can only do it not violating our rights of suffrage, and therefore the only way to do it is prospective, correct?
Prospective, Your
So
Honor.
when you ask, what is the basis for you to say that it cannot be retroactive? It is the very basis, the very fundamental concept of our constitutional order that the contract with the sovereign is that the sovereign exercise it with notice, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And the mere fact that nobody questioned these postponements for so long does not mean that it becomes law, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Because we are not a country that creates traditions. We are a country of laws, and if it was not questioned and stricken down, it is only because the court cannot act too actively. We have to wait until a petition is filed in order for us to exercise our power of judicial review, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. You are a very experienced election lawyer. May I
Sort of,
confirm
Your
that? Yes.
Sort of, Your Honor.
Yes, sort of. And you are like Attorney Garcia, who is now who has taken a very large pay cut in government. You are most sought after by a lot of politicians, not only for your knowledge in the law, but because of your practical experience working with politics, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. And as advocate of senior citizens' rights, Your Honors.
Okay, now tell me, why did Congress postpone the barangay elections from your point of view?
Honestly speaking, as I said earlier, I
No,
think
everything here is honest.
this is
This is a safe space.
yeah. I would say, Your Honor, with due respect to our politicians, that this was a promise again, as done in the past. From what I have heard and based on my experience as an election lawyer, have influence in the making of laws, running for a particular position, could have used this as a political propaganda, Your Honors. Promise. A promise to do something if they win in their particular barangay. And what is that promise? Pinangangako ko po sa inyo, pag nanalo ako ganito, ang inyo pong termino ay ma-extend. Paano? Ipo-postpone natin ang election. So that's the reason, Your Honor, why this barangay election was postponed. I don't think the postponement was due to the pandemic, Your Honor. I cannot buy that because we held an election, national election, at the height of a pandemic, Your Honor. Ngayon nga, medyo maluwag na. Ngayon pa tayo hindi mag-hold ng barangay election. I won't say it is economic. They are saying we can save. How can we save? We are not canceling the election. We are just postponing the election to have it done in future dates, 1 year, 2 years from now. We would have additional voters. So this will be additional registration, additional expenses, additional ballots, additional certificates of canvass. So hindi ho tayo makakatipid, lalong gagastos. By the time baka bumaba pa ang halaga ng piso. So lalo nang malaking magagastos ng Commission on Elections. That's why I say that it is not economic, Your Honor, but it is political. A political promise, if I may say, Your Honor.
Thank you for being so candid to the court. And now that you've said it, I am bothered. It's done because of that. And after the line of questioning of Justice Kagiwa, where he actually pointed out what was written in the proposed bills, and that had it happened that the COMELEC transferred the 8 billion, it would have been Araujo versus DBM all over again, the DAP case. Cross-border transfers. Very worrisome. But in any case, so this law was passed on October 12, 2022, correct?
Yes,
Is this a year for national elections?
Is this a year of national
So
election?
October 12, 2022, is it after the national election?
After the national. We had the May 2022 national and local elections.
Republic Act 11462 also postponed the barangay elections. It was passed December 3, 2019.
It was an election year.
It was an election year, and it's December 3, 2019, after May
May
2019.
19 elections.
I can go further and go through Republic Act 9164, 9340, 10923, 10952, then these ones,
Oh, then
1140.
after election.
Yes, and because I just noted your explanation, I am not a politician myself. I have very good friends, especially in the court, that have been politicians that would have probably discerned what was happening. But again, this is something that bothers me a lot, because the law does not contain the explanation. And as Justice Ben Kagiwa has pointed, that doesn't mean that there is no reason.
Yes.
But that means that our work has to be more, because we have to find the reasons. But because, first and foremost, we protect the rights of the people to suffrage, and second, every law should be within the rubric of the Bill of Rights and this statement of principles, then therefore we have to look for the rationale. And so far, I've only heard this rationale. By the way, one of us discovered that one statement of a senator said that they wanted to look at looking at the election process. Correct?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Is it possible that COMELEC conducts the barangay election now in December 5, not infringing on the right of suffrage of our people, the fundamental, primordial, essential, constitutional right of suffrage, but still go on to work on reforms on the election process?
They can go on, Your Honor, but they cannot hold the December 5 election because of this law, Your Honor.
No, I'm just stating, what if we issue a TRO, and what if we declare this as
Okay, yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
But TRO is issued.
Yes, and that would mean, therefore, that this reason is still viable for future elections, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And it is not essential not to conduct the elections now, because right now, COMELEC is preparing with the processes that it has.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And they are, there is no addition, there is no modification. Sa Pilipino po, sanay na sanay po ang COMELEC na gawin ito. And I'm sure that the chair is your good friend.
Yes.
You know his capabilities and the capabilities of the COMELEC.
That's why I'm very confident the COMELEC can do it, Your Honor.
Yes. Madaling sabihin yan kasi hindi ikaw yung chair. Okay. Pero thank
Pero
you.
kaya yan, Your Honor, I'm sure, because they have competent election officials in the Commission on Election. I know them, Your Honor, and they are, I'm sure they are very, very much ready to go on with this election, Your Honor.
Yes, okay, thank you.
2 months pa na, ano ba ngayon? October, November, 2 months to go.
Yes.
Still a long way to go, Your Honor. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Thank you, Attorney Macalintal. May I ask the Honorable Solgen? First, let me say, welcome to the court. And
Good evening.
I'm
Good evening, Your Honor.
good evening, and we are so happy that you are Now, you are the Solicitor General to answer our questions. I am very deeply bothered by a statement that you made a while ago that the power of the legislature is plenary. The power of the legislature to pass laws is plenary. And when searched and interpolated by Justice Ben again, if I may just quote Justice Ben, you said that an extension of 50 years is acceptable.
No, I did not say that, Your Honor.
Okay, that you said that it can be unreasonable, correct?
Yes.
Yes. The right to suffrage is part of the right to liberty, correct?
Right to liberty, Your Honor, is covered by the Bill of Rights.
Yes. The right to
Under
suffrage.
Article 3, but right of suffrage is
Yes.
covered by another article.
Yes,
Article
but the right
5.
to liberty in the due process clause is all encompassing. Everything that you can do as an individual that you have not surrendered in a Lockean sense to the government is yours. That's the right to liberty. Is that correct?
Generally, yes,
Yes.
Your Honor.
So the right to liberty and the right to life is connected. Because the right for you to select who to run your government will also affect the quality of your life, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mita Malate case, that the right to life is the quality of life, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So anything that infringes on the fundamental, essential, constitutional, and primordial right to suffrage can also affect those rights, that penumbra of rights protected by the due process clause, correct?
Very possible, Your Honor.
Yes. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And there is where we can locate it. That primordially, we should ask ourselves whether this law, not only whether Congress had the power to pass it, but whether it infringes upon a fundamental liberty, a fundamental right given to our people. Is that correct?
Sure.
That is a correct constitutional approach, correct?
That is correct.
Because the Constitution is basically composed of 4 parts. The first part being the Bill of Rights, the powers of the people. The second is what we delegate to government. The third is natural resources, etc. And the fourth is how we amend the basic law of the land. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. And we cannot just say that just because Congress has the power to change the terms of office, that we blind ourselves to the other parts of the Constitution, including the rights of the people, correct?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Solicitor General, the basics of which, or the details of which, have been interpolated already by my colleagues. But I would like to end with a particular question. So the Constitution states that national elections must be held the second Monday of May, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Subject to law, correct?
Unless otherwise provided by
Unless otherwise provided by law. You see, this case to me raises a very fundamental, important question. So does that mean if Congress is so plenary and does not state very clearly its reasons, that it can postpone the 2028 elections?
Your Honor, the matter about the reasons for the postponement is something that...
Because if Congress can postpone barangay elections with this reasoning that we are now discovering, so are we saying, except if provided by law, I hope your position is that this court cannot review any law that will postpone the elections of Congress or the elections for the president in 2028.
I'm not saying that, Your Honor.
Okay.
I
So you are
recognize
also
the
saying,
expanded
therefore,
power
yes,
of the court for judicial review.
Okay, so you are therefore saying that we can use our expanded power to actually review whether there are sufficient reasons for us to deprive our people of their fundamental, primordial, essential constitutional right to select candidates that they have already with a particular term, correct?
True, Your Honor, but
Yes.
in this particular case, we are beset by certain procedural problems. Number one of which is that Congress was not impleaded as a party to this suit. Number two, the petitioner himself does not allege grave abuse of discretion. Number three, there are factual issues that we need to thresh out, like what exactly was the reason that was adopted by Congress as an institution. Not, I'm not referring to individual bills filed by senators or congressmen, because that may refer to their own view about the need to postpone the elections. But we need to find out the institutional reason for postponing the elections. And in the absence of someone from Congress, who I believe is an indispensable party in these deliberations, then we will be confronted with a very serious problem like that, because we cannot deal on speculative motives for the postponement of this election. We need facts.
Yeah,
Your Honor.
yes, Mr. Solicitor General. I'm sorry, but my recollection of the jurisprudence of this country, there are cases where the constitutionality of the law is considered without impleading Congress each and every time. Second, my understanding of a question of law and a question of fact is that for questions of law, the reasons for the law, there is an opportunity for the Congress to actually provide for the reasons in its opening sections or either in a perambular clause. And it has never been the case that for this court to try to discern the reasons, it will conduct evidence, receive evidence, because Congress had the opportunity as a collective body to actually come together and write it. But because they did not write it in the law, then it has to be the task of this the judiciary, the Supreme Court, to try to find it out with the assistance of the parties, of course. Okay. Non-joinder of parties is not a reason to dismiss the Congress or order the Congress to be impleaded, because that is part of a fundamental power of this court. The last paragraph of Section 1, Article 8 empowers us when there is an accusation of grave abuse of discretion, etc. Okay, so in other words, is this something? Are the procedural issues something that we can hide with in order to prevent ourselves to rule on a very fundamental issue? And to my mind, just personally, I do not speak for everybody. This involves the most fundamental, primordial, essential constitutional right. Maraming salamat, Mr. Sochi.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Chief.
Just a few questions, Mr. Solicitor General. The
Good evening, Chief.
The administrative code provides that the Solicitor General should appear in the court when there are constitutional issues, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
So technically, you don't have to consider the procedural issue that members of the both houses of the legislative should be made parties to the case.
I didn't quite understand the question, Your Honor.
Well, under the administrative code, the function of the Solicitor General is to appear before the Supreme Court when a constitutional issue is raised as to the validity of a law.
Yes,
correct?
Your Honor. That's
And
correct, Your Honor.
therefore, your procedural issue that you raised, that the members of Congress are not impleaded, is a very technical issue, because the court is empowered to pass upon the constitutionality of a law, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So in that non-impleading of members of the upper and the lower house will not really matter.
Now,
Because you raised earlier that,
yes.
as a procedural issue, that how can we possibly resolve this, and it affects Congress, who is not heard because they were not impleaded as a party.
It will just be quite difficult if Congress was not impleaded, but that doesn't mean really that the court cannot resolve the constitutional issues.
Okay, based on procedural issues that you raised earlier.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask one question or two questions with the petitioner? How many times as Congress postponed barangay election?
Your Honor, this I look for my record. Sorry. Congress postponed barangay elections on the following years. Number one, May 9, 1988. It was postponed to November 1988. The November 14, 1988 was postponed to 1989. The October 31, 2005 was postponed to 2007. The October 30, 2019 was postponed to 2017. The October 29, 2017 was postponed to 2018. The May 12, 2020 was postponed to December 2022. In other words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 already. And if this Honorable Court will sustain Republic Act 119 35, then it will be the seventh time.
So the postponements were made under the 87 Constitution already.
Yes, Your Honor, since 1988, Your Honor.
Okay. One of the principles in constitutional litigation is that you must raise the unconstitutionality at the first opportunity. Right?
Yes, Your Honor.
In 1988, there was a postponement made by Congress. Did you file a petition in court?
No, Your Honor.
Why not?
I was still studying, Your Honor, as to whether or not I have valid grounds to question its
But more than
constitutionality.
10 years had lapsed from 1988.
Yes,
After
Your
this
Honor.
time, and in between there were several postponements. Why were you not impelled to bring this petition to the court?
I have not yet done my full research on the issues, Your Honors, and I was fully convinced today that it is high time that this issue be brought before this honorable tribunal. As a matter of fact, in many, many times I have made statements in the press about my position. Many times I have talked to certain congressmen and clients, politicians about this, Your Honor. But to my regret, Your Honor, I was never invited to any congressional hearings pertaining to the postponement of the elections, Your Honors.
Did you represent as a election lawyer barangay officials in election contests?
Yes, Your Honor. There were also some barangay officials who sought my professional help, Your Honor, even from the Sangguniang Kabataan, Your Honors.
And did you have a chance to ask them whether it's okay with them if the elections are postponed?
Well, the incumbent barangay officials are very happy, Your Honors. But those who are not incumbent or who intended to run, they were asking me if there is any way to push through with the scheduled election, Your Honor.
Because they're eager to run
Yes, Your Honors.
and they have their chance to get elected
And have a chance to be elected, Your
and
Honor.
replace the incumbent barangay
Yes, Your Honor.
officials.
And not only that, many people, Your Honors, I have talked to are saying that it is high time that the elections be held because there are also barangay officials who should be replaced, Your Honors. And when the news came out, Your Honors, that I filed this petition, I was looking at the social media comments that almost 90% of our people are in favor of this petition, Your Honors. They are in favor of pursuing or proceeding with the elections, Your Honors.
Earlier, Senior Associate Justice Marvick Leonen cited the provision of the Constitution, Article 2 Declaration of Principles, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them.
Yes, Your Honor.
Correct? And you agreed on that. Is there such a thing as direct action by citizens?
Well, precisely this is the reason why I filed this petition, Your Honor. In order to invoke my sovereign right, Your Honors, to elect the people who would.
Yeah, but under the principle of constitution of government, because the constitution practically is divided into two: constitution of Bill of Rights and constitution of government. Under the constitution of government, isn't it that we have three co-equal branches?
Yes, Your Honor.
And therefore certain powers are lodged by the people in their sovereign capacity
Yes,
to these three branches?
I agree, Your Honor, but all these powers exercised by these different branches of the government must be exercised in good faith and with due regard to law and the provisions of the Constitution. Your
And
Honor.
of course, one of the principles also in constitutional interpretations, members of Congress or even members of the court are performing their duties and responsibilities in good faith.
Yes, Your Honor, that's the general principle, the general presumption, Your Honor, the regularity of functions of all government officials, Your Honor.
And in constitutional law, it is also a basic principle that when you're asking to declare a law unconstitutional, the petitioner has the heavy burden of showing specific causes.
Very, very heavy, Your Honor.
Very, very heavy. Have you done that in your petition?
With humbleness, Your Honor, I would say I have done it, Your Honor.
In what way?
I think
What specific allegations in your petition?
I think I have convinced
Convince the court that you have discharged your heavy burden of declaring the law unconstitutional. Remember, when you speak of declaring a law as unconstitutional, you are practically addressing two equal branches of government
Yes, Your Honor.
vis-a-vis the judiciary, the Congress that passed the law and the President that signed the bill into law.
Yes, Your Honor. I think, Your Honor, I have convinced the honorable members of this honorable court because if I would not be able to convince all of you, then we have the same problem.
Well,
We have the same problem of having been deprived of our right of suffrage.
but isn't it that power to determine whether to have the election or not is lodged with Congress because we, the sovereign, elected them
Yes, Your Honor,
and
but
gave them the power to legislate?
as I said earlier, Your Honor, this could be abused. As a matter of fact, when the Honorable Solicitor General was asked, can Congress amend it that the term be 100 years? Technically speaking, it can, but this could be abused, Your Honors, because every now and then, Congress can just amend the law.
And precisely, there is that provision in the Constitution, Article 8, Section 1, second part. We are now granted expanded judicial power of review.
Review, Your Honor.
So even if the Solicitor General says theoretically, Congress can legislate 100 years, anyone can come to court, file a petition, and ask that Congress grave abuse of discretion in legislating that. And of course, we look into the parameters to determine the reasonableness of the legislation. Is that not our function?
Yes, Your Honor, that is the function of this honorable court, and I look forward to having a decision favoring my petition, Your Honor.
May I ask the chairman of the COMELEC?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice.
Mr. Chief Justice, good evening.
Thank you. The petitioner harps on Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code, saying that the power to postpone election is exclusively lodged with the COMELEC. Did you hear his arguments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you agree with that
I
proposition?
strongly disagree, Your Honor.
Why do you disagree?
Because the provision of Section 5 Batas Pangmasabilang 881 is a delegated authority coming from Congress. Being a delegated authority, it can be taken, modified, or even reviewed by Congress, meaning to say that when Congress deemed it necessary to give us the power to postpone the election, the Congress limited such exercise of power to the causes as mentioned therein, meaning there is an urgency for the Commission to act on these matters, and that's why the limitation was, as given in Section 5, pertains to the causes mentioned therein, and likewise pertaining to the subdivisions, as mentioned, likewise in the last part of Batas Pambansabilang 881. And so therefore, Your Honors, when Congress said COMELEC can postpone the election based on these causes, Congress can likewise postpone the election based on any other causes other than those mentioned.
Okay. I had an opportunity to work with the COMELEC and tell me if this is the situation contemplated in Section 5. Congress sets the date of election, whatever, local or national. So on that date, COMELEC should conduct the election, right?
Right, Your Honor.
You cannot deviate from that.
That's right, Your Honor.
But on the day of the election, the circumstances enumerated in Section 5 of the Omnibus Election Code happens, right?
That's right, Your Honor.
Terrorism, what have you. That is the time you are given the power to postpone the election. Is that not correct?
That's right, Your Honor.
To address that contingency that will prevent the conduct of a fair and honest election, COMELEC can unilaterally postpone the election, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Motu proprio, yes.
And this is different from the postponement under the law. Is that not correct?
That's right, Your Honor. Under Article 10, Section 8 of the Constitution.
So the Section 588 of PP Omnibus Code simply tells you that when this happens, you are authorized to postpone.
Yes, Your Honor.
It does not cover the postponement, which simply means the Congress resets the date.
Yes, Your Honor. Only on the causes as mentioned.
Yes, you are allowed to postpone and reset the date if this situation should arise on the election day set by Congress. Is that
That's
not correct?
right. That's right, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Chairperson Garcia, with leave of the chief. If we issue a TRO, can you conduct the barangay elections on December 5, 2022?
No, Your Honor.
Why not?
Because of lack of material time, Your Honor.
Because of lack of material time. But would you say that the situation is that if the court does not rule on this case and hides behind the procedural issue, that this case is capable of repetition, then evading review because of what is happening right now?
Yes, Your Honor.
So it's possible that in the next year, in October, a law is again passed near October, and then confusing COMELEC, and therefore somebody again comes up to the Supreme Court, and it will become again a situation where I will ask you quite definitely, can you conduct the elections? And you will say, difficult, cannot be, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, and I just want to clarify, your difficulty is not because of your incapability, lack of management, etc. Okay, last question. Congress, not COMELEC, has the power to change the terms of the barangay official, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, but the question is not really that, correct? The question is, can that change retroact to incumbent members without violating the fundamental, primordial, essential constitutional right of the people that have already elected for 3 years only, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. But the COMELEC,
That's the issue, correct?
that's the issue. The COMELEC
Yes.
is not prepared to answer that question.
Yes, I'm sure. That's why I'm just clarifying that the issue is not who has the power to extend. The issue is, yes, Congress has the power to extend. Congress has the power to change even the terms of the power of the barangay. But the question now is, should it retroact without violating the fundamental right of suffrage and the due process rights and equal protection rights of the people as they elected their incumbent, correct?
That I agree, Your Honor. That would seem to be the issue right now.
Yes, but I do agree with you that Congress has the power to define the terms and the emoluments of the office. You have the power to execute it. You have the extraordinary power to postpone under the conditions mentioned by the chief. But again, we have to ponder on whether it should be made to retroact. And that these kinds of postponements is done this way. If there are any problems for the next election, changes in terms, it has to be prospective. That's the question, right?
Yes, sir. That's the reason why, Your Honor, we welcome this case because this will practically enrich jurisprudence and will guide the commission in the future.
Yes, and they just say thank you to the COMELEC for your superb performance. during the past elections.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay, so let's be clear. COMELEC has manifested that they cannot proceed with the election as scheduled.
Chief,
But,
just
go ahead.
one last question for the chair of the COMELEC.
Sure.
Salamat. Good evening, Mr. Chair. You heard Petitioner Attorney Makalintal listing all the postponements going back all the way to 1988, no? So irregular postponements, no? Would you say that those irregular postponements constitute disenfranchisement?
Your Honor, since that is a political question, COMELEC is just under Article 9C, with all due respect, Section 1 is merely here to enforce and administer election law. May I respectfully...
I'm seeking an answer on the basis of your experience as a very seasoned practitioner in election laws.
Disenfranchisement would mean that voters will not be allowed to vote. When we reset the election, they will not be allowed to vote on the day of that the election is supposed to be conducted. But however, if there is a later date for the conduct of the election, then there is no disenfranchisement.
Based on the standards set out in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, where there should be genuine periodic elections, don't you think that that would constitute a form of disenfranchisement?
May I respectfully explain, Your Honor? Under the principle of transformation, definitely the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights will form part of the law of the land. But however, under the principle of that the Congress by itself will enact law, it would appear to be that international, in this case, or this treaty, will be subservient to what is provided for by the Constitution, and that is under Article 10, Section 8.
Of course, that's a given. No? Domestic laws would always be given primacy over treaties and other covenants that we are a state party to. But the thing is that genuine periodic elections would go hand in hand with the right of suffrage of every individual. Kung ipopostpone mo yan, very irregular, 2 years now, 3 years later, etc. I think the effect on the destabilization that it will have on the electoral process is really very frightening. Instead of stabilizing, it destabilizes the process. So that's what we're just saying.
Yes, Your
Honor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Mr. Chief Justice, sana lang kay Petitioner Attorney Makalintal.
Go ahead.
Attorney Makalintal, if we happen to sustain this law, you would be disheartened, of course, no? So next year, assuming Congress again would postpone, you still come before us, question it again. So you're willing to give Congress another chance? Kasi ang sinasabi ni Mr. Chair Garcia, at this time, wala na silang capacity.
Pag natalo po ako rito, may jurisprudence na po. So, baka hindi na ako bumalik.
Okay, thank you.
But I have a prayer that in order, the issue that I DRO, not necessarily DRO, but an advice or directive to the COMELEC to continue with the preparation. And if ever my petition is sustained, then the election be held. If it cannot be held by December 5, it be held on a date very close to the date.
Yeah, I think it would be becoming of us to also set guidelines, no?
Yes, Your Honor.
Siguro pwede namin gawing guideline yung genuine periodic elections.
Very nice.
Standard.
Very applicable.
Under the International Covenant on Civil and
Yes, Your
Political
Honor.
Rights.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Petitioner, you mentioned about the postponement a number of times since 1988. Can you share with the court the reasons for the postponement for those supposedly scheduled election? No, don't worry. You don't have to answer now. because after this, we will require the parties to submit
Oh, I see.
your
Yes,
respective
Your Honor.
memorandum within 15 days from today.
Yes, Your Honor.
So please address in your filing the dates of postponement, what was the reason given by Congress
Yes, Your Honor.
in those postponements.
We will do that, Your Honor.
If you can get us the congressional deliberations and cite them to guide us when we decide the case. That's the reasons for the successive postponement.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because there we can determine the reasonableness of the postponement.
Yes, Your Honor. We will do that, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
So any other matters? Yes, Justice Ricky.
The chairman of the COMELEC has persistently maintained that it is not really possible for us to push through with the scheduled election in December, so that even if we issue a directive to to your office to do so, maybe we not exactly on December, but a reasonable period after October 5. What do you think would be that reasonable period? Otherwise, it's pointless for us to be going through all this process. Hindi pa kala kayo makaka-comply eh.
In that event, if that case will happen, if that scenario will happen, Your Honor, I'll be very blunt. The commission will determine as to whether the cause as mentioned in Section 5 is present, and these are one of the causes as mentioned in Section 5 is fortuitous event, and perhaps a decision or a ruling from the Supreme Court may be considered as a fortuitous event, and therefore the cessation of that fortuitous event will be the basis of counting the 30 days. Yeah.
You cannot treat the decision of the Supreme Court as a fortuitous event. It's foreseeable. It should come. The court must decide.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Anyway,
Furthermore, Chief, it's not an act of God.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much.
But basically, are you telling us that you cannot conduct the election within the next few months after the original schedule?
We can, Your Honor. If it will not be conducted on December 5, we can. If we will be given at least few months, as you have mentioned, Your Honor, Mr. Chief.
Tell us in your memorandum, just in case, when you can possibly conduct the election. That will guide us in our decision.
Yes, Your Honor, we will do that.
Taking into account also the reasons why those several postponements that we had.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honors.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, can you also include in your memo what, to your thinking, would constitute genuine periodic elections?
Yes, Your Honor, we will do that. That's very important.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? So we will require the parties, the Solicitor General and the petitioner, to submit your respective memo within 15 days from today. Any other matter, Madam? Go ahead.
Maybe request only for 5 days, Your Honors,
5 days?
because of the
We
very important issues here, Your Honor, so that the COMELEC also determine as to when.
We'll give you 15 days. If you want to file it within 5 days, that's okay with us.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. 15 days then, Your Honor.
Okay. Actually, the court is in recess starting Monday. We'll resume November 4. That's the bar exams that forthcoming. Anyway, Madam Clerk of Court, are there other matters that the court must take?
There are no other matters, Your Honor.
That being the case, this session is adjourned.
All right.